if they just talk to a realtor and say, everybody down condos, I'm looking at somebody from Indiana realtor.
It works. Welcome everybody. I'll call the meeting to order. If we can please stand, it's the pledge to the flag. Yeah. United States of America, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, welcome everybody. It's a nice crowd tonight. Just so you know, if you'd like to speak tonight, there's a sign-up sheet over on the side, so please sign up if you'd like to talk. At this point, I'll ask Melissa for the roll call, please.
Mr. Beagle?
Here.
Aaron Wild?
Here.
Ben Hendry?
Here.
Eric Strange?
Here.
Andy Ellison?
Here.
Laura McIntyre?
Okay, I will entertain a motion for a whole bunch of minutes. We have the April 15th, the April 23rd Finance Committee, and the May 20th minutes.
Move to receive and file.
Move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Okay, we have visitors and communications. The first thing we have is Fort Thomas Business Council. Is somebody here from the Business Council?
Yes.
Oh, come on up. Tell us about the two new businesses we have here.
So I'm Nick from Gross Insurance and the chair of the Fort Thomas Business Council. So wanted to go over a couple of ribbon cuttings that we've had and talk about some events that we've had and kind of recap things. So last month we introduced Northern Kentucky Medical Massage. She's over in the building below Lee Whitty. And then this month we had a ribbon cutting for BF Realty on the Midway District and Freedom Insurance Group, who's in the 18 North building. So exciting to have new businesses coming to town, and I think Shannon was saying that all the spaces that we have commercially are full or accounted for. So that's always good on the business side of things. So last month we had a joint networking meeting with the chamber for their after hours at Grassroots and Vines. We had almost 70 people attend, so it was a great networking event. And actually this month, next Thursday, we're having an after hours at Fort Thomas Coffee networking event. So anybody's welcome to join. We'd love to see a lot of friendly faces out there. Did Brittany make it? She's not making it. I was going to introduce Brittany. I know she was hoping to make it, but if she trickles in at some point, maybe she can give her a little spiel, but I don't want to hold anything up. So thank you guys for having us. Does anybody have any questions? Perfect.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Are any of the folks from any of those new businesses here tonight?
I don't believe so. I know Brittany was trying to make it, but I think she may have had a scheduling conflict.
Okay, no worries. That's fine.
What about existing businesses coming up?
Yeah, is there any existing business owners here that have anything new and exciting they want to tell us about? If not, we will move to the list. Sarah Wiedenhorn, you're first.
One quick question for finance man. How much do we spend on rebranding the city?
All told, I think it ended up being a little bit more than $100 grand. All told, I think it was a little more than $100 grand.
Everybody liked George better. Anyway, I want to talk about the scooterists and the people riding bicycles through town in front of the drugstore and high school. How many bikes or scooters have we confiscated from speeding people on the sidewalks?
0.
Why don't we grab some of them when they go by? They're going like 30 miles an hour past the drugstore up there.
Same reason we don't grab people who jaywalk across the street.
Okay, the jaywalking part. Your scooter's coming down the street, no lights at night in front of the high school. When you get down to the Sunoco station, I'm not sure if they're pedestrians or motor vehicles, but anyway, they're in the road and they get down here and people stop for them, and then the people think the scooters are going to stop, and then they cut over into the sidewalk and then they almost get plowed. So how long are we going to wait? We got a real problem. Whatever you're doing ain't working. Are you going to do anything to fix it? Yeah, or are you going to wait till somebody gets killed? Like a pedestrian or one of the people on a bicycle or scooter.
There's laws out there about bicycles.
You know, I see bicycles in front of the drugstore, they're going like 90 miles an hour up there. That's an example.
There's a couple laws on the books, and there's not one that fits well for these.
Okay, why don't you stick a cop up there in the little parking lot by the Board of Education one night and just have them grab a couple when they go by, and have their parents come up and.
I prefer they don't do that so we don't get sued.
Yeah, but we
Yeah, that would be mine. Okay. We are gonna talk about this under new business.
Okay.
But if you have any other comments about it, and then we'll talk
I know, I
about
talked to two other people in the city, and they always say we have like, the cops are talking to people at the schools and the kids and all this kind of stuff, and
it. Yeah, we do school education about it. We're getting signs that say walk your ride during business districts. So we have bike rodeos that we have already held a couple weeks ago that we're gonna continue
Right.
to do that to educate the children, and we do social media posts. This, in my opinion, this is not a legislative thing because.
I understand all that, it's not working.
Okay.
I talk to people every night, and, you know, they always get plowed. It's gonna take
They
some
get hit?
getting.
Do they actually get hit?
Well, I can start hitting them every night if I want to get
Well, I mean,
them.
you said they all get plowed, and I'd like to talk to people about that. It's just, the more information we have,
Right.
you know, the more we can do. But I hear a lot of people say they get plowed and stuff, but I don't really think that is the case. I think it's close, but I think it's.
Okay, why don't we do that? Why don't one of you guys come up there and just sit around in front of City Hall, maybe at 8 o'clock at night, and you can see them go shooting by. I talk to the firemen all the time, and they see them go by, and they say, somebody's gonna get their head busted, and then when somebody finally gets killed, then you guys will do something.
That's what the firemen say.
No. I wish we had a better plan, because what we're doing now isn't
But
working.
we're gonna talk about that later on this
Okay,
week.
so you're gonna confiscate a few?
We'll talk about it later in this meeting, but no, we're
And
not.
city attorney, no.
But anything else?
Hey, sir,
Hey,
I
Warren.
couldn't confiscate your cars if you sped.
What?
Confiscate them.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question. These scooters, then. I see golf carts also with no lights at 10 o'clock at night going by the high school. But, these scooters, when they're in the street, are they pedestrians, are they bicycles, are they motor vehicles? What are they considered? Can you give them a ticket?
That the law is evolving in. What I'm going to suggest, clearly you're concerned about, that's great. I'm gonna suggest, rather than taking up time right now, meet with city officials.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. If you've got ideas, we'd love to hear them, and we'll continue to all work together. Fair enough?
That sounds good, but I don't think it works.
It certainly won't work if we don't cooperate and talk.
I get a cooperation part, but I think these little 10-year-old kids don't understand cooperation. They're just zooming around with
I
friends.
hear what you're saying.
Okay, keep up the good work and don't spend all our money.
Thank you. Mary Healy.
Good evening. I've been a 50-year resident of Fort Thomas, and I commend City Council for its dedication to the city. I'd rather be a lot of places tonight other than here, as probably you, but I'm concerned about some zoning changes I have heard. And it is my understanding, I don't know if it's going to be taken up this evening, but it is my understanding that on Wednesday, when council and zoning committees are going to consider this, that the public may not be able to hear about it. I suspect that the council has heard from developers about desires to add to the density of the city, or I'd be surprised why it is considering it. But I want to make sure that council is aware of how many citizens feel about it. I also believe that the city has about already 1/3 of apartments in this city, which is more or as much as many other surrounding cities do. So I see no reason why we need to add apartments, whether they're larger, more dense, or not. Also, I understand the city has a surplus, so I don't know that we are needing to raise revenue. There are other ways to raise revenue as well. For instance, near my home, LPK employs some sophisticated engineers who pay earnings tax, and the city benefits from that earnings tax without having to provide police services, schooling, or evening parking for these individuals. Apartments known as San Sierra at 1321 Alexander Pike in Fort Thomas, I understand have more police runs for dangerous actions than any other address in Fort Thomas, which demonstrates some apartments don't bring the type of citizens Fort Thomas wants. The city's own survey of citizens reflected our community's preference for historic preservation, limiting residential development and density. So that's a real big reason why I consider, question whether the city should consider improving or expanding apartments in their density. Have our wonderful schools been consulted about their current capacity? At the request of Dan Gorman in 2018, I met with him and he shared his vision that Fort Thomas become more like Marymount and Carmel, Indiana, with expanding restaurants, retail, and high-end dense condos, which would maintain empty nesters. In 2022, that became reality in One Highland, which presently I understand has only 13 of 18 condos sold. To me, I think that demonstrates why we may not need more dense buildings. Compare that to on my street within the last 2 weeks, a Hollywood single dwelling family residence sold within a week of its listing at more than the listing price, at $280 per square foot price. I'm not a developer or city planner, but unlike Carmel or Marymount, which Dan Gorman had mentioned to me 40+ years ago, Fort Thomas has 4 different entrances to it in roads, plus 3 exits from 471, which divides our community. I, on the south end, have no reason to go through central Fort Thomas to partake of businesses when I can get on any of those exits, do my required grocery shopping since we can't support a grocery store, where I can have a nice lunch, dinner, and shop. So I think Fort Thomas is a unique situation where we don't need those things. We're very close to them, but we still maintain our green space, our beautiful residences, maintain our property values, and our school systems. Speaking of the south end, that area only has 2 lanes of highways, which really bottlenecks during the beginning and closing of Woodfield schools. If that would become more bottlenecked with the addition of apartment buildings, I think it would endanger the students and also create more bottlenecks. Your own Cam Babazon told me within the last 2 months that he avoids our area during school beginning in the year because of the bottleneck. So it's already bad. In closing, I believe that the city should follow the city's request to not add density or more density and preserve our character of a beautiful, safe, green, quiet location where we can enjoy the attributes of the surrounding city's restaurants and shopping and grocery shopping and come home to a nice, quiet, green space residences. I also hereby request the city council to enact rules that will prohibit anyone who is or serving on city council to profit from the sale or development of or management of businesses unless it's their own personal residence, to make certain that our council maintains its independent judgment from further development. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Thank you very much.
Tim Tracy.
I think I still have a little time. And my zest to express my opinion, that was told I misspoke, that only 3 of the apartments have been sold out of 18. Thank you.
Good evening. Tim Tracy, I reside on Riverside Parkway, also known as Pothole Parkway, but I hope that's something that will be handled in the not too distant future. I briefly want to address 2 issues. The first is I'm pleased that it appears the city is not raising property taxes this year, rising property values and the practice of voting for a compensating rate increase over the decades is a burden to the taxpayers, especially those on fixed incomes. The compounding effect of these increases is troubling. I noted that several surrounding communities lowered their tax rate last year as property values rose, while Fort Thomas voted for the compensating rate. Having lived in several communities that experienced soaring property values, I recall that the administration of those communities lowered their tax rates as values rose and maintaining a sufficient budget while practicing fiscal responsibility. I hope that happens here. The second issue is regarding the serious allegations that were brought up during the last council meeting. There was some discussion that this would be handled by the city ethics board. I'm of the opinion this is not viable, as the members of the ethics board were either appointed or approved by the mayor, whose actions are being scrutinized. I suggest an outside agency, perhaps the offices of the state auditor or the attorney general, be requested to examine these allegations. If they don't believe it's within their purview, a law firm with no ties to Fort Thomas should be retained, and the issue should be thoroughly vetted. My underlying reasoning for this to be handled by an independent source is for transparency, which has been sorely lacking by our city government over the last several years. The optics of some of the decisions have been magnified by this lack of transparency. In closing, I was pleased when the city chose Tim Schneider as the city attorney. I worked with Tim for years, albeit on the other side of the equation, and we not only developed a trust, but a friendship. It's with this trust, Tim, that I believe that you will guide the effort for transparency in our city government. Thanks for listening to me.
Amy Walpole.
Hi, my name is Amy Waldvogel. I don't actually live in Fort Thomas, I live in Mount Washington, but I'm here as the newly elected president of the Village Players of Fort Thomas, which is down the road at 8 North. I wanted to introduce myself to you. I had no idea I was coming on such an exciting meeting. But I just wanted to say hello and introduce myself to you, as I said, and welcome all of you to come down and see what we're up to. For anyone who doesn't know, I promise I'll be very brief. The Village Players of Fort Thomas was founded in 1966 as a department of the Women's Club of Fort Thomas. And then in 2018, when the Women's Club dissolved, we became our own thing. And we've been providing quality community theater. Just recently, we were awarded a great number of awards at the Regional Community Theater Festival. We would hope to see as many of you as are interested in theatrical activities to come and see us. You can find all the information you want at villageplayers.org. I'm planning to come around just so that I know what's going on. And we are looking forward to participating in the coming Independence Day parade this year. And that's all.
Congratulations on
Missed the meeting.
Stephen Sprecher.
Well, my name is Stephen Sprecher. I live next door to Midway Cafe. It's an old building, it's an apartment building. My landlord has a driveway that is right next to Midway. And sometimes he lets us park there to, get groceries in and out. And with these scooters, they have no idea that they're traveling 20, 30 miles an hour on the sidewalk. And they're coming through, like where the ice cream stop is and the Fort Thomas, Midway Cafe and Grassroots Fine, they come flying through there. And if you're not paying attention, I'm already paying attention to the cars that are coming so I can, make my turn. But then, these kids come out of nowhere and they're flying more than what the speed limit is. It's 25 through there. And I've been on the road, and whenever I drive anywhere, I always set my car on cruise control. So when I get up to 25, that's when I can set my cruise control. And these kids, they'll jump out in front of me, and they're leaving me like I'm sitting still. And I mean, I know that you can't legislate away the scooters, but we have to address that problem before some of these kids get seriously hurt. I mean, if, let's say that somebody's pulling into their driveway and it's getting towards dusk and these kids don't wear reflective clothing like you're supposed to on bikes. They don't have reflective decals on those scooters like bicycles have on the pedals. They got reflective, and then they got the little reflector lights. I'm not saying that we need to legislate that they need to have this, but it would be a safety thing. And I mean, what happens if somebody older than me, I'm in my 50s, but you know, what happens if somebody really can't see at that time of night and they're turning into their driveway there on South Fort Thomas Avenue and they smack a kid or a kid runs into them? I mean, one of these kids are going to get hurt, and I really don't want to see that. When I was coming here tonight, I stepped out of my apartment building, and I literally looked to the right, looked to the left, and because I had to step down, and I got a cane because I'm disabled, and two kids went boogieing by, and I yelled at them. I said, "Slow the effing down." You know, I mean, if you don't see them, they're going to run somebody over on the sidewalk, or let alone like Midway. You know, I'm not trying to shoot Midway Cafe down, but you know, I see them boogieing through there, and they got servers coming in and out. I mean, somebody's going to get hurt, and I just don't want to see the city have to pay for the financial responsibility for that. So I hope you all can really address this. I'm not here to try to crucify anybody, but they really need something done. I don't know if you need to have the police, when the police go to the schools. I don't know if they do the DARE program anymore or not, but if the police go to the schools to, you know, just kind of like educate the kids a little bit about, hey, be responsible, you know, be like bicyclists. I don't have problems with bicyclists. I mean, they come and go on the sidewalk, but they're usually going pretty slow, you know, pedal wise. Now, you know, I know that they got the e-bikes that can go pretty fast, but you know, I just don't want to see any kids hurt. My kids are out of my house now, but I've lived up here for 12 years, and I really like this neighborhood, and I really like the city I live. But I just really would like something done. That's my say.
I want to follow up on that because you're the second person to come up. It is on the agenda tonight. You know, Erica from Midway did reach out to all of us about the incidents she's having because she has a lot of, obviously, patrons out front and customers. It is on the agenda. As a matter of fact, I think there was a Fort Thomas Business Association meeting. Matt and Mayor Haas were there, and someone brought that up in the audience. And one thing that I have heard, and you know, my brother, who is a judge, has told me, and I said it that night, is technology advances so much faster than laws and ordinances. You know, and it's something that it's definitely come to light. I hope we're not too late, but I think we're going to take a deep dive. I hope we all agree that we want to take a deep dive and look into it. And I have done some research in some other cities that started up some preventative measures, so I hope we can pick from them and choose what's best and hopefully get this enacted sooner than later so someone doesn't get hurt. But I think that if anybody's listening or if anybody else wants to come up, that it's definitely on our radar now. It's on the agenda tonight. I think we all agree that hopefully that something can be done. It's not as easy as it sounds. Right. So, because we don't want to restrict someone's rights, but we also want to protect them and the citizens as well too. So thank you for coming up. Appreciate it.
My name is Stephen Chalk, and I live on Lafayette Avenue in Fort Thomas. Thanks for allowing me to direct my comments to the Fort Thomas City Council and to Mayor Haas. Thank you for your time, your effort, and your attention this evening as we work through this evening. You all have very difficult tasks on council as well as the mayor, and your duties to serve as a steward of the city are a huge responsibility. My comments this evening will be focused on real estate, zoning, development, and our collective future. As I understand, the majority of you who are on council were not serving 6 or 7 years ago. However, you are aware that there's been a significant amount of change that's occurred within our city, and that change remains in the wind right now. First, I want to dive into real estate development and get into why the One Highland structure, and I'll quote the materials, but featuring exceptional architecture, expressive interior finishes, and an engaging lifestyle offering one-floor living with elevator access to the secured parking where you will find the highest quality interiors and attention to detail. I want to set the stage for an upper perspective because yes, it was an unusual time when that building was built here. It was an unusual time in our city, our community, and our lifetime as well. So there were a lot of factors at play. So when I observed what I would describe as, for me, when I observe the number of units that have been sold, I look around and I say, why is that? And not necessarily that I want to point the finger to anybody and say, you know, what went wrong, but how can we make it better in the future? How can we avoid some of those mistakes? And if I'm in your shoes as council or mayor, I want to know the answers to that. I want to know why. It's not really a question of what's wrong, but a very valid question is, why did it occur, and how can we keep it from happening again, because we know there's going to be development. Consider the components. We have all heard location, 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 and I would say the location of that building is pristine and #1 location in the area. So it can't be location, I assume. The building appears well constructed and stunning, and it screams Fort Thomas, which is great. I've been in the retail and the ground level, the foundation level, and if I were scoring, I'd give it good marks for everything I've seen from a building standpoint. It's human nature, though, to ask why did the sales suffer, and what worked against the building. The next, I'd look at competition in the area as far as what was selling at the time. Is there too much competition? Is there too much real estate inventory? So I conducted a search of Campbell County residential real estate by way of the Federal Reserve Bank in St. Louis at the economic data, and found that, I've got a lot of these numbers, but I'll just give you 3 that really matter. In July of 2016, there were 383 residences offered for sale in Campbell County. In July of 2020, there were 122 residences offered for sale in Campbell County. And in March of 23, there were 130 residences offered for sale. So it's not really a case of inventory, a glut of inventory, as to why they weren't selling. There's been a banner bull market for selling real estate for the last 5 years, so that's a little hard to understand. It's been a 68.2% drop in inventory and residences in Campbell County from that period, 2016 to 2020. And so that was one data point, so I looked at Kenton County. They dropped 68.1%, so it was within 0.1%, the difference in how they went from their high to the low in the number of residences that were offered. So it's hard to rule that out and blame that on the poor sales and occupancy. So the next thing I looked at was, from a logical standpoint, was interest rates. And I studied the interest rates movement for the residential mortgages to see what negative impact may have been lurking in that interest rate environment. And I used bank rate and the Federal Reserve for this data. The residential mortgage interest rates from 2019 through 2021 inclusive ranged from a high of 3.94 to a low of 2.65. So it certainly wasn't interest rates. And I still have a nagging question of what's the challenge in building these residential units. I don't have the answer, but I think if I'm on council or if I'm the mayor, I want to know what's the problem. Because there's definitely a problem. If you look at what's occurred in the market, these things should have been flying off the shelf. So I will now turn my attention to Resolution 04219, which states that the units will be offered at a fair price. And I don't have any basis for establishing price. It might be worth it to check with bond counsel, because they have a line in there that says they'll be offered at a fair value, which to me means fair price. Also, I check with the trustee on bond indenture and see what their ideas are on that, because it's something's not working.
Mr. Chalk, we got 5-minute limit, especially with so many
What am I
tonight. You're at over 5 minutes and 30 seconds.
Holy cow.
I'll give him my time.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm confident the city council or the consultants have access to better data than I do, but I'll provide URLs in the event you want to see my stuff. On 04/2019 has to do with a memo agreement regarding the issuance of the industrial building revenue bonds. Section 1, subsection D refers to the city being authorized and empowered by the provisions of section 103.200 and 103.285, which are included in KRS, collectively referred to as the Act. And the city can issue bonds for the purposes of defraying costs for acquiring, constructing, blah, 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 including. Section 1, subsection E echo states that the purpose of the Act, inter alia, are to promote the economic development of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, to review or to relieve conditions of unemployment while maintaining our compliance requirements. So I'm curious, are we in compliance? To council and to the mayor?
We come with the IRBs, we are in compliance.
Okay, so how do you track your aid and rehabilitation to returning veterans? That's one of the tracking points.
I have to look at what you're
Okay.
referring to. You said a lot of things with a lot of this contract, so I'd have to take a look at it.
Okay. And another one, and I wouldn't hold anybody, this against anybody, but one is to promote reconversion to a peacetime economy. We're in both more wars than we were in, so that's, we can forget about that one here. I wouldn't worry about complying, but there are a set of rules to comply with, and I was just curious how we're tracking that and who's responsible for that. Okay, the agreement in lieu of taxes, I'll just be brief with the, I didn't have the indenture to read the indenture, but we have a building that's, the parcel is valued at roughly 22 million, and we have a lot of empty space there, and somebody's got to eat that, and not having the indenture, I don't know who eats it, but that's not a warm, fuzzy feeling for anybody. I read that it's not going to come out of the city, but if the city doesn't get the taxes, et cetera, that's a different story. It's coming from somewhere. The other point I have is I don't like what's going on with the zoning, and phase 4 of the entire 400+ page zoning document is a bit of a travesty. I feel to the city and the city council and to the mayor to take a hard look. Would it be a sad day for our city if we fell victim to an eternal document that erased all the goodwill and charm that was once our community, and through no fault of your own, you were part of that? And so, by going along with the status quo. So, sure, you have a consultant that tells you what you can do, what you can't do, where you could change it, what you cannot change, but I don't know your consultant, and I don't know the company, but what I do know is any consultant that builds a dependency upon themselves is not really serving as a consultant. A consultant would be transferring knowledge and skills to the city, not trying to build an infinite relationship. So I would look hard at that before we have a 2 Highland, a 3 Highland, a 4 Highland, et cetera. So in closing, I leave you with a couple of parting thoughts. Whether you like the building or the placement of 1 Highland, it's a well-built structure. And I want to read what Mr. Greiby said in his writing about our community before he took on the 1 Highland project. He said, "My company specializes in developing residences in walkable neighborhoods with an engaging mix of dining, shopping, and recreational activities. That's why I selected Fort Thomas." So we want to change that. This is a guy that goes all around the country and selects great cities to make them a little better by what he does and blend in. So I would really question the logic of, we've got this developer who knows his stuff, who's put in a great building, whether it's too close to the sidewalk or whatever your problems are with it. It's a nice building. And this is a case of situational leadership for everybody on council. So each of you has this pivotal position, whether you approve 1 Highland or not. If you plan to be here for years in this role, stand up for what you know is the right thing to do and do the right thing for the community. There are thousands of people counting on you and your leadership and stewardship and good judgment. Thanks.
Thank you. Vicki Clemens.
I live back on Tony Terrace, Sardis, and all that kind of area. All I want to do is just want to know when the company's going to really start working. That's all I want to know. When the construction guys are really going to start working. They work the first month, and starting the 1st of May, I'll push it. Okay, I'll generous to them. They work 5 days. Okay, they haven't been there that often. And even last week, they were there for maybe 6 hours the whole week. So that's
You're talking about the road itself?
just anything.
Yeah, the school would have all that information. I
And I
can
asked
follow up
Mr.
with
Robinson, I was sitting out in front of the city building one day, and Mr. Robinson went walking by, and I said, yeah, when are, I just said, when are they gonna fix the hump between the road and the whatever? And then my husband goes, no, they gotta fill it more. I said, okay, now it's 3 weeks, or 3 weeks later, 4, they haven't fixed it. And Mr. Robinson said, oh, they'll get right on that. So, and I just wanna know when they're gonna.
Yeah, I'm not sure what hump you're talking about, but if you can email or call me, and then I can.
I've been to your office like 3 weeks ago, and then I came back again.
Did you have a meeting with me? Or?
Nope, I didn't, because
okay.
you were, busy.
Okay.
We were.
You made it sound like I'm ignoring you.
No, but you're not ignoring me. All I wanna know is when they're gonna start, or are they gonna stay? They are the same crew that are working on Route 8 too. So I already know that for a fact, because the same guys that are working up in our area is the same crew working down on Route 8 too.
Okay.
I know that. I just wanna know when, what, where, how. It's just start a fire.
Yeah, if you can reach out to me, I'll get some specifics.
Okay, that's fine, because I did talk to Mr. Robinson one day, and then I said, I came in and you were busy, and when I talked to him.
He reached out to me today to talk, and I was too busy to even talk to him.
And I talked to Mr. Ewald, so,
Okay.
I mean, we got it, I'm sorry I mispronounced your name, but that's just what I did.
Okay.
But that's just what I wanna know, because I drive there, I go through that subdivision every day, 2 to 3 times. I go to work early in the morning, so they can't say they're there at 6 o'clock, because I'm going to the hospital at 6 o'clock, you know, so. I do know, I just really want this to get started, get going, that's all.
Okay.
Great, thank you. All right, Joe Ferris.
Jim Ferris, 66 Bernie Lane. Something different surfaces every time I land on a random page in the 442-page-long draft, Phase 4 draft of the UDO. Case in point is the newly dreamed-up neighborhood commercial office zone. By sheer definition, suburban neighborhoods aren't commercial. Commercial developments are not suburban neighborhoods. Therefore, neighborhood commercial has just got to be smoke and mirrors to hide something from the document and from the building owners and from the nearby residents. The Phase 4 draft is suggesting that a single building housing a single business at 1960 Memorial Parkway, a single building with a single business at 2000 Memorial Parkway, and a single building divided into a few very small offices located at the top of Bivouac be viewed through the same lens as the massive 13-acre Jeff Wilder complex at the exit from Interstate 471, or the large group of assorted businesses in the Highland and Grand Avenue area of Fort Thomas. Because the PVA does not define the acreage of the small businesses on the left side of the parking lot at 20 North Grand, I was unable to arrive at the total acreage for that property. Suffice it to say, it is a vastly different parcel of land than the top of Bivouac. Having asked for clarification of restricted uses versus conditional uses for properties, I was directed to the UDO for the definitions of terms referenced throughout the document. Take a listen. A restricted use is a use that is permitted by right in the districts in which they are listed, providing that the use complies with the standards in section 5.4, conditional and restricted use regulations. If compliance with the restricted use requirements is not possible, the use shall be deemed a conditional use and shall be considered pursuant to section 1.6 conditional use permit. By the way, section 5.4 is 42 pages long. So that's where you've got to go through these 42 pages to find out if you're compliant. Next was a conditional use, which is per KRS 100.111, a use which is essential to or would promote the public health, safety, or welfare in one or more zones, but which would impair the integrity and character of the zone in which it is located, or in adjoining zones unless restrictions on location, size, extent, and character of performance are imposed in addition to those imposed in the zoning regulation. I ask, does that help clear up any confusion you might have as to what can and can't be built? No. On a .436 acre, or a .52 acre, or a .797 acre lot? Does it convince you that these three small parcels of land, two on Memorial and one at the top of Bivouac, should be lumped in with Jeff Weiler or Highland and Grand? Elsewhere in the UDO, there are some specific about restrictions for these tiny parcels. My question is, if there are so many restrictions, why are the parcels being lumped together in the first place? There is absolutely no cause, no reason, and no logic in creating a new zone to incorporate these 5 areas into one same zone. They're not the same. We're getting close to 3 years working on this project. An unimaginable number of hours have been spent, and as far as I can tell, the only thing we have now that we didn't have 3 years ago is a 442-page document of words and a planning and zoning commission that is largely made up of the same men who approved the last zoning code that we are now trying to fix. This is not my quote, but one that I am repeating since it seems relevant to this topic. The existing code might need examination. No challenge to that fact. But the quote that I am borrowing is, "You can't leave those who created the problem in charge of the solution." Thank you so much.
Thank you. Follow the nominee.
Hi, good evening. I'm Paula Benaming. I live at 18 Young Calder Ridge. Many of your ancestors moved and stayed in Fort Thomas for its safety, charm, history, and a small town feel. Many from those families are still here, and many have moved here for the same reasons. Ask yourself, why do I live in Fort Thomas? Do I feel safe? Do you love that there's only 2 houses that might be the same? Do you love our city charm? Do you love the history of our town? Do you love our schools, our churches? Do you love that we're on a hill and that we don't have a drive-through city? Do you love our quaint and small businesses? These are the reasons our grandparents, parents, our children, and their children are here today, and why people want to move here, like me, who's been here for 43 years. All I've been hearing lately is density, density, density. I hear some council members want more density. Fort Thomas is already one of the densest areas in greater Cincinnati or northern Kentucky. Ask any police officer what comes along with density. Turn on the news and you'll see what comes when cities are overpopulated. Crime goes up, schools go down, and a multitude of other problems. Fort Thomas doesn't need more apartments, multifamilies, high-rises, and more density. So council, before you vote on a proposed change by the Planning Commission on zoning, please, please know what you're voting for. Don't follow someone else's lead. I know reading 400 some pages in length is trying, but we are depending on you. The people voted for you to keep our town safe, historical, quaint, and the beautiful community that we all love to live in. It's up to you. Thank you.
Roger Peterman.
Thank you. Mayor, members of council, I am here to change subject from most past discussion. I really want to address the letter that was submitted to council at the last meeting. And before I do that, and I went up to him before the meeting and asked, I'm going to challenge some of the information that was stated in that letter. And I was, happy to do it. And you said you did not want to withdraw that letter. And so, unless you thought about it, because you said in the letter that you didn't have information, maybe you developed more and saw that some of the things you said weren't accurate.
I just want to be clear, when you came up to me, you said, I'm going to read this letter. If you don't withdraw your letter to Mayor Haas, I'm going to read this letter. I said, go for it.
I don't have a letter.
Well, read whatever it is your statement is.
Well, so it's not what I said.
A bit unethical for a previous lawyer.
It's not what I said.
Yeah, that's fine. That's exactly what you said. But that's fine.
Okay, well, I guess I shouldn't have come up and spoken
Probably
personally, because that's sort of how the city works, has worked historically. So I'll just go into it. I mean, but you did say in the letter that you didn't have the information. I thought maybe you might have it, and that based on that, you would have found out that some of the things weren't accurate. Just go ahead. All right. So, kind of like Paula, we moved here in 1983. Our family did, so we're not natives here. And we've learned that people are really passionate about this community. It's wonderful. There's a culture that existed, that citizens support this community. I was able to observe that over and over again on city council with their time and talents. We have a lot of people with professional experience and other experience here that have donated a lot of that time, and then financially as well. There's been a lot of money raised for the schools, and money's been contributed for park development, so people are invested in this community. And I think that culture is foundational to everything that happens here. And that's been my experience in other organizations, and I think that's what has existed in Fort Thomas, where citizens are committed to the city, trust each other, that they are acting in the community's best interest. Our family bought into that. And in fact, I think that culture may have expanded beyond here. Same way with the school board, the other major elected body in the city. And then we have several people that had experience on city council or in the city and have now gone on to county offices. Mayor, Judge Pendry, Commissioner Lampy, a city council member, Mayor Pendry, Mr. Pendry was mayor at one time. We've got the sheriff is a former Fort Thomas policeman, and Mike Jansen, Steve Franz, a long time county attorney, a long time. I think this culture has expanded out into the county from this background in Fort Thomas. So anyway, that is what concerns me about a letter like this that has unfounded information that's been submitted publicly without any previous discussion about what actually happened. And so in these, let me give you a little more background about myself. I am a public finance attorney. I know Mayor Haas mentioned that I provided him some comfort about some actions questioning what was done as was said in the letter. I am an attorney. I'm not Mayor Haas's attorney. Dan Seidenfeld is the city attorney, so I was not representing him as an attorney. However, I am very experienced in this area of law. In fact, my first job at law school was working in the city's economic development cabinet. And so since that time, I've worked with cities and counties and state governments, state universities all over the state, financing public projects. I have about 40 years of experience doing that. I know how people think, I know what they're looking for, I know what the legal limits are, the legal requirements are. It was interesting to hear the statute that was read. That's my area of the law, so if anybody's interested in why that language is in there, I can give you that answer. In any event, in my time on city council, when I first came on council, there was a visioning process that was just being completed. So that wasn't, people coming to a council meeting only. That was the entire city was invited to participate. and they came up with a vision for the city, and a lot of those things have been accomplished. The parks, just look at the park. I mean, the parks were nothing, 40 years ago. And I don't have time to go into all that detail, so that was one of the main things that was considered part of the visioning process, and those things were done. So when Mayor Haas was elected, he had this idea of doing visioning process again. It's like, all right, well, we did that. We haven't accomplished all those things. We really need to do this. But the process went forward was very interesting. And my 3 takeaways, I didn't really refer back to it, that there were 3 areas of focus that were out of hand.
Roger, we're over 5 minutes right now. I'm sorry.
Well, if you want to hear what happened,
I think you're more than welcome to email it to us, like I did with them, and gave everybody a heads up 2 months prior to what was
okay,
going
well,
on.
let me say one final thing. You've alleged in your letter that there may have been collusion with city council members. So there were 3 people that voted for it, and all 3 of them are here. And I can tell you definitively, and if you want a sworn statement, I'll give you, never discussed as far as Mayor Haas wanting to get any, out of any transaction that he had. In fact, he had been released from that before we even voted on it. Never discussed. We'll see what former Councilman Bowman is here too. Councilman Beasel's here. If you're alleging that, if you don't know, you aren't alleging, you're saying people are saying. If you're saying people are saying, well, I'm not saying I'm the person, as is Ken, as is Jeff, never discussed. So that part of the letter, which is the basis, as if Mayor Haas had some kind of, is fundamentally not true, particularly when you take into account that he had been released from his.
Thank you, Roger.
I'd like to rebuttal that just a little bit, not much, and I appreciate Roger coming up and
I'll just say this, if there's going to be a rebuttal, you probably need to be able to respond.
That's fine. That's fine. I mean, he'd come up from me before the meeting, and said what he said, regardless of what he thinks. And my interpretation of what happened is outlined in that letter pretty well, and it's that he continued to be a liaison for the city after he had a financial agreement set up with Gryway Development. I just don't think that is the only problem with the One Highland Development Agreement. I think from soup to nuts, it needs to be reviewed in its entirety to make sure that we don't do this again. And there's a couple things that I can tell you that are facts that I think, and I apologize if this upsets you. You don't have to send me a Christmas card this year. So, but there's a couple things that I can tell you that are facts. Is that when we went into executive session and he announced that he was, I'm glad you're here because I want you on record on this. He announced that he had a put option on it, and this was, I think, the May 20th meeting, 2019, and it was an executive session. He announced he had a put option on it. There was some discussion that he had to leave because he had a financial agreement with, a binding agreement with Gryway Development, and you acknowledged that and also agreed that he should not be part of that discussion any longer. So
I'm not sure the relevance.
So the relevance is that my claim is that once he had a financial agreement in place with Gryway Development, he can no longer be a liaison for that project and continue to push the city to sign a deal with him that would release him from that option, regardless of whether he released it 1 month ahead of time or not. After he signed that, he continued to be a liaison for the city before he released that option.
Let me just read the sentence in your letter
That's
that
what
I'm
you're
responding to. It says, this is alarming because Mayor Haas may have wielded his executive authority and influence to ensure this deal happened, which involved potential misuses of a large amount of money. That he may have wielded. Well, there were 3 people that voted for it, so he was going to influence it.
There's actually 4, including him.
Well,
so let's not forget that fact.
That means every vote that was taken was an absolute essential vote for it to be. Now, people may disagree with the decision that was made, but that decision was made legally, and here, let me read again to the same point. Possible collusion or manipulation of city council members. That's what it says. Well, I'm here to tell you, didn't happen.
That's no problem. It'll all come out when the investigation happens. So I appreciate your time today, but I'm glad you came up and spoke your piece.
Well, you did say it's a waste of the city's time, and I agree to that, to look into this any further.
The fruit basket? I enjoyed this so much, too, Roger.
I have something to say on that. So, Adam, when you first engaged Roger on this, you said he came up to you and said, if you don't pull your letter, he's gonna read this public. And you said it's unethical for a former city council member.
So I believe it is.
Is it factual that you went to Eric and said, you need to retire as mayor, or I'm gonna read this letter out in public?
Well, I said to him, I actually hear, if you guys wanna know the whole story behind it, and it's kind of funny that I'm being attacked here, when 2 months prior to me reading the letter, I came to, I'll be honest, this is gonna come up later anyways, and I'd rather do it in public because I love transparency. Maybe that's what people are here for. Is I reached out to Matt and Tim and gave him the letter. He was on vacation. Matt said, I don't think we should tell him right now he's on vacation. I said, absolutely not. I don't believe we should ruin his vacation for this. He came back. I offered him till the next council meeting. He said he would like another month. In that month.
Hey, Adam, real quick, because you just used my name. You said that you would prefer not to tell them, though. I never said that we shouldn't tell them.
Okay, I apologize. Yeah, so
I just want to make sure.
You guys shouldn't tell them that you were doing this vacation.
We had a good conversation.
Yeah,
You
sure.
came in and said regardless of what you and I talked about, you were
Yes.
going to send this out to council.
Yes.
After our meeting.
Yes.
We had a good conversation about it, and you decided not to.
Well,
during the whole meeting, I
during
said,
the conversation,
this was
we
your.
don't ruin his vacation. You asked. You told me
I said that was a great idea.
Yeah.
But I just want to make sure.
So I told you
the whole time it was you're running the ship, right?
I honored his wishes, your wishes, or whatever wishes.
Not my wishes.
So, and then gave him another month, and then prior to that, I said I gave him a date and time, and then we met a couple more times after that, and you guys had asked me if I do not discuss this with anybody else outside this purview, because out of courtesy and respect for family, friends, anybody that might be involved, I honored your obligation. Come to find out that Mayor Haas was still meeting with other council members per this. He had met with them unbeknownst to me, so I was trying to honor my side. Apparently that didn't matter for what he wanted to do to try to make sure this gets in the way. Everything that letter I stated is they're not facts. I presented the facts that I had, and I thought that we would be best if we would meet as a council as a whole to review the facts that I laid out from meetings of minutes. That's all.
So to answer the question, did you or did you not say, I will read this in public unless you quit in May?
I don't remember. I don't recall if I said that.
Yeah,
I said this will come out in public.
That's what it says.
Okay, it says it in the letter.
You want me to read it?
So you were trying to force his hand by getting something you wanted.
I was trying to protect the city, his family, and friends from any collateral damage.
Okay, let's move on.
All right, Ken Bowman.
I'll Steve Reed. I'm Ken Bowman, 60 Altamont Court, lifelong resident, small business owner in the Central Business District for 30 years, 1988 to 2018. Served on City Council for 10 years, 2012 to 2022. I appreciate the opportunity to speak about the recent public allegations being made by Mr. Blau against Mayor Haas, myself, and other council members past and present. It was an honor for me to serve 5 terms on council from 2012 to 2022. I always took this position very seriously and made decisions based on what I saw being in the best long-term interest of the community. While I was not mentioned by name in any of the public attacks, there was a reference to possible collusion with city council members. This baseless attack appears in the letter to council and now widely distributed to the public and other media. Since I was serving in this period of 2019, along with Roger Peterman, Jeff Beasel, Mark Collier, and David Cameron, I take the slanderous accusation personally. No such collusion occurred, and I can say that no improper procedures were followed in the decisions made by me. I might go so far as to characterize this as projection. The allegation that Mayor Haas brokered a deal with Rick Riley is also laughable. The mayor's being accused here of doing his job. All of us on council knew full well from the beginning of the process what was under consideration, and it was the mayor's duty to be the conduit between the potential developer, council, and the public. Fort Thomas has a very long history of individual residents, and even sometimes city officials that are willing to use their own resources for the betterment of the community. Most aren't looking for recognition or any personal gain. Think of our pocket parks that used to be service stations at Highland and Grand, as well as Memorial Parkway and North Fort Thomas Avenue. Think of our football, baseball, soccer fields. Think of our schools and the Fort Thomas Education Foundation. There's many other examples of private money being used selflessly for public good. Most recently, the Carlisle Park ground along Memorial Parkway that should eventually be a great asset to the community. In the time being scrutinized here, 5 years after the fact, we were all in agreement that we didn't want another bank in the space previously occupied by BB&T. The action taken by the mayor at that time to make that outcome less likely should be appreciated, not attacked. He had enough passion for what was considered to be the best for the CBD to leverage his own resources to advance the vision of a quality restaurant in that location. There was no motivation or personal gain behind this action. The vote referenced for in the development agreement occurred on July 15th. He was released out of the put obligation on June 17th. We were also aware of the efforts of the Quarter Group, a group of caring citizens that were willing to invest in this vision and see it through from the conceptual stages to reality. I, for one, enjoy very much the Green Line restaurant regularly and couldn't be happier about that outcome. Again, this is a group of concerned citizens that had a vision and were willing to personally invest to see it happen. I don't think that any in this group have any expectations of much, if any, personal gain. The final allegation that I would like to comment on is in reference to the discussion of Mayfield becoming a cul-de-sac. I participated in several discussions about traffic on Mayfield over the years as a result of so much increased activity in Highland Park. I personally was pushing for a solution that would involve creating another way in and out of the park, which would involve the connection from James Avenue. That proved also to be unpopular with some residents on Sweetbriar and the surrounding neighbors. At no time was I hearing anything about removing access to the park from Mayfield. In closing, I'll state that this counterproductive political smear campaign needs to end. If some of us were as vindictive as the accuser, we might call for actions to be taken for slander against him. I still try to follow city meetings closely and sometimes regret not being able to participate in any official capacity. It was at the time, and it's still frustrating to see what happens, or what appears to be too much pandering to an audience and not enough meaningful, productive dialogue around issues. That's all I've got. Thank you.
I would like to say something. I would like to say something real quick here. This one's not. It has nothing to do really with Ken Bowman. Two things. When I started this process, I reached out to KLC, the Kentucky League of Cities, and their attorney, and that's who advised me on how to address this and bring the letter to Tim and Matt first before it was made public. So I did everything I could through the legal ways that I know how in order to how to address this the proper way, and then the attorney from there advised me on that. So
Are you telling me to tell the mayor to quit, or you're going to read it?
They actually did. They said you off. Actually, I think the proper recourse is you offer them an option and you say to resign, and that's exactly what they told me. I promise you that. I did not.
You hear that in the email?
I'm sure I do. I promise you that everything I did, I crossed my T's and dot my I's. I thought about this for a year and a half or 2 years. This isn't something I came across lightly or didn't do my homework on. So for anybody that thinks I didn't differently for malicious reasons is incorrect. So, and also there's one last thing I want to say. People keep saying people do this for the good of the neighborhood. I don't believe that Mayor Haas had zero malicious intent. I think he was doing this out of goodness of his heart. I think he thought it was best for the city. I truly believe that. I don't think a guy who gets in his car drunk at night has any malicious intent when he runs into somebody and kills them, but he still gets charged with manslaughter. It doesn't mean what he did was right. It doesn't mean what advice he got was correct or he should have followed. It doesn't take away from what he did in using his position to further a personal agenda item he thought was best for the city, period.
Gene Farley?
Well, wow, I'm not sure I want to talk after all. I guess I need to, like I say, put your money where your mouth is, and I feel like over the last year, so I feel like the citizens, like the everyday, this little homeowners, not being heard by council or the administration about our concerns about the zoning thing. Like all of a sudden it seems like we need to rezone everything, and first it was like, it's just about cleaning things up, and suddenly it's about, I don't know, it's just like the trust level is maybe not there for a lot of reasons. And so I guess what I'm saying is when I think of Fort Thomas, and when people talk about Fort Thomas, it's about the Mayberry feel of things. It's not about a big urban sprawl. And developers might cringe hear that about Mayberry, but to me and a lot of people living here, they are referring to the small farm charm, the tree-lined streets, the beautiful parks, and the green spaces everywhere you look. And then you ask people why they want to live here, it's about that. So your child can ride down the street. I mean, now with scooters, maybe not. But ordinarily, you're not in fear. You can take a long walk around your neighborhood after dark and feel good about it. And I just want to be sure that council and the administration really, I just really want you to look at the zoning changes you're making and make sure it's not just to provide an easy way for the developers, that it's really good for us and for your children and grandchildren and everybody that lives here, the small person, not just the businesses. They're important and we got that and we love them, but it's also about just the person who owns a house here and the people that vote for you, really. So it's like, just don't forget about us, because we're really what makes the city. So anyway, thank you, and I appreciate your time and efforts and everything.
Thank you.
Would it be appropriate to give an update on where we are on the zoning process now? And then sure
We're gonna talk about it tomorrow, or I think Wednesday when we're all talking about it is probably the best.
Well, with the people here, I think
There will be a meeting on Wednesday between the council and planning and zoning. There won't be an opportunity for public comment at the time, but certainly everybody's welcome to come to listen. And I can tell you that all these things that have been brought up are very much a concern for all of us. And that's why we spent so much time and effort in reviewing all of these aspects of this. Because the existing zoning would not prevent anything from happening out there. The new zoning is designed to try to have a little bit better control over what does happen in the city. I know there's some misinformation out there, but we're still working on it. It's not done yet. There'll be one more meeting on Wednesday. You're all welcome to come. When is that? 6:30?
6:30 on Wednesday.
6:30 in the evening.
I don't want to open a Pandora's box, but there has been change that's occurred as a result of public input.
Yes.
And so
Very
it's
much
being
so.
heard, change is occurring because of it. Not everything can change because of it, but I think it's been meaningful.
Yes. Dennis Pompilio.
I will be very controversial here. Dennis Montpelier, 40 Kathy Lane. I know you've heard a lot of things going on in the city, and I'm going to be talking to you about the zoning and try to keep Fort Thomas as more of a residential bedroom community. My family moved here about 68 years ago, and I'm sure the big part of it was security, schools, and the opportunity that the city has afforded everybody who moved in here. Going to the Fort Thomas school system, I was very lucky to have such a great background in education, going to college. Growing up, going to the Highlands football games, you know, that was one of my lists to play for Highlands. My Pee-wee football coach here instilled the excitement playing for the Fort Thomas Junior Football League. And when I graduated, my wife and I came back here. I ended up coaching football, and I took a couple hints from Mr. Van Camper. Thank you very much. And had a great time. And one of the best things I've ever heard, and compliments I ever heard, was from one of my players who told me that, and he was an 8th grader, and he said, after playing for you, and I had some great coaches, assistant coaches, was, Jim's brother was one of them. He said, I coached Pee Wee football because of me. I mean, that's great. I mean, you can have a nicer thing to say. So I just hope that council thinks hard about any changes that are being considered and making changes. You know, do we want more people? Do we want more rental? I don't think so. I'd much rather have $400,000 or $500,000 single family house. You know, you build it, it's going to sell. As people have already commented, it doesn't stay on the market very long, and so it's going to be keep the time strong. I'm not against improvement, but you know, if businesses come here, I think we all try to support them. But trying to have multi-families, I don't think we need anymore. You know, if a business comes in, let's support it, and let's just keep Fort Thomas and everybody who wants to move to Fort Thomas, and you can see it because most of the time real estate doesn't stay on the market very long. Because people want to move to Fort Thomas, and they want to move it just because of one of the reasons I gave: security and education and a strong community feeling. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Manager.
Good evening. Before I get started, I just want to clear up something there that you just said. First of all, you said there's misinformation out there. I have to disagree with that. First of all, there is misinformation because the city has not clearly and effectively talked about what exactly is in the zoning code that you're proposing. Secondly, every single person I know who has propagated any kind of information about the proposed zoning code has followed it closely and are very, very careful to make sure that anything that is propagated is in fact factual. You talked about how we have a zoning code that needs to be fixed. I agree with you. You said to make it a little bit better, it needs to be completely better. I think a lot of people are here tonight because they want to keep Fort Thomas the way it is. In 2016, that's what the citizens told you in the survey that wasn't paid attention to. Last year, that's what the citizens told you in the brand fuel survey. Let's do what citizens are telling us to do. They elected all of you, including you, Mayor, even though you ran unopposed, you're all elected officials. I'm here tonight because I believe that the interests of developers are very prominent in our current city administration. And I believe that those interests are prioritized in our current zoning code as well as in the proposed zoning code. For example, Mayor Haas told a group of us last summer right here in the city building that he foresees development where Fifth Third Bank is, where Ameristop is, where US Bank is, and where Garden State Bank is. And I'm just talking about these 2 blocks. I mean, God only knows what's planned for the rest of the city. While future development is inevitable and change can be good, we can all too easily lose the charm, character, and unique nature of our small city that we love if we don't insist that our zoning code is carefully and specifically crafted to preserve the aspects of our town that make us special. As currently written, I believe that the proposed zoning ordinance draft falls far short of this goal. Developers are well-financed and have a strong lobby. Going up against them takes courage and it takes tenacity. The best way to avoid any conflict between the interests of developers and the desires of citizens to keep our town small and quaint is to have clear, concise, and strong goals when creating this new zoning ordinance. As a planning commissioner recently stated, once the zoning code is written and adopted, they cannot deviate from it. They have to follow it. So it's important that Fort Thomas gets the zoning code right. A 225-page comprehensive plan was adopted in 2018, and page 9 of that plan has a single sentence on it. That one sentence is start with the end in mind. There's no dispute that the current code needs fixing. But even after 3 years, it's difficult to determine what end the proposed fixes are trying to accomplish. which leaves me and others to fill in the blanks. Instead of what developers want, the zoning goal that I believe that citizens want is nicely described in the following quote. Quote, "We have a special thing here in Fort Thomas. Growing up in Fort Thomas was and is as good as it gets. When I was a kid, my parents trusted in the city and felt safe enough to allow us to play in the streets until dark, ride bikes to convenience in the middle of town or to school, and walk to our friend's house after school on the weekends. That is exactly what I want for my kids. Fort Thomas is one of the most sought-after cities in the Commonwealth to live. We have excellent schools. We have been named the safest city in Kentucky. City staff work very hard to preserve the history of what makes our city so wonderful," end quote. These sentiments, I think, could come from any one of us. It could come from me. That's how I grew up in Fort Thomas. I think that's how a lot of you grew up in Fort Thomas. Lauren, you have a baby. Ben, you got a baby and a baby on the way. Andy, you have kids. You have kids. Jeff, Mayor Haas. Adam, I know, is very concerned about our kids in the future of Fort Thomas, and Eric has kids. These sentiments could come from any of us, but they came from Jeff Beazle. This particular quote was from him and was written in October of 2018, 2 months before the adoption of a comprehensive plan that included sections that redesign our city by adding density to our historic and business areas. The addition of density is in direct opposition to what the majority of Fort Thomas citizens want. Council members, I humbly assert tonight in front of you that we have lost our way. We've lost sight of that special thing that Jeff talked about. And instead of adopting zoning provisions, preserving the historic significance that makes our city so wonderful that Jeff so eloquently stated, what I hear instead over and over again in zoning meetings with our zoning consultant are discussions of what elements are attractive to developers. It just happened last week when you guys were talking about Inverness. And then what seems to be the holy grail of the zoning effort, bringing properties into conformity. We live in a city that is 150 years old. We are going to have non-conforming buildings. No matter how good the zoning is, no matter how much you try to bring them on in, we have to accept that some buildings are going to be non-conforming. Our goal should be to preserve our city, not to do some technical stuff. We can clean stuff up in the meantime, but that should not be our main goal.
Peggy, you're at 5.5 minutes.
Keep going. Keep going.
Keep
going.
I think my husband's going to
Oh,
see this time.
okay, that's fine.
Okay.
As I've stated before council in the past, the goal of local government is dual. It's safety and it's quality of life. Development and business interests fall under the goal of quality of life. Business and development interests are not equal to the quality of life goal, and they certainly should not supersede it. Creating a zoning code that protects our special thing starts by walking outside and looking around our city. Our central business districts are composed of smaller, unique buildings that add architectural interest and character to our town. Very, very few of our commercial buildings throughout our town include residential units upstairs. Many of them, our commercial buildings, are one-story buildings. We don't want large-scale mixed-use buildings. That's what the zoning consultant has into the zoning code. You need to eliminate it. You need to be strong and courageous, ask questions, and stand up. What needs to happen right now, in my opinion, is that council members need to place a very brief but a temporary hold on this rezoning project. I know you've been working on it a long time, but it's important that you take a minute to clearly define the actual goals of what the zoning project should do, and then direct the zoning consultant clearly and unambiguously to draft with appropriate legal review an ordinance that mirrors what we actually have on the ground in Fort Thomas, not what she thinks should be on the ground. The environment that we have here is what is keeping our property values high. Then I ask that you carefully pay attention to every proposed building dimension that she has brought to our city. Height, width, depth, setbacks, the allowance of multiple buildings on parcels right along the side here, so that we can keep our special thing, as Jeff stated. I ask you to eliminate the proposed new ability of our unelected zoning administrator to increase building heights by 10%, which in effect brings the height of future buildings in our business districts up to 44 feet. That's 6 feet shy of one Highland. So in other words,
this much shy of 1 Highland is what's gonna happen if you adopt the zoning ordinance as currently written. Also, please, no more residential units over commercial space. No more than what we currently have. We already have a balance of at least 33% multifamily units to single-family units. We need to keep that balance healthy. And we need to keep the balance that our infrastructure can actually support. Wednesday night, you are going to meet with the Planning Commission to decide what items are actually going to go into the final draft of the zoning ordinance. Before you attend that meeting, I hope that you will spend significant time thinking about what the end is that you should keep in mind. I'm here tonight to ask you that instead of simply signing off on a proposed zoning ordinance draft that all too often prioritizes the interest of developers over citizens, allows for the redesigning of our city, and adds density to our business districts, that you instead prioritize the goals and wishes of the citizens who actually elected you. You are up against strong forces, and some of you are new to council, and you may be a bit reticent about representing your constituents in a bold way. Please, please, be courageous, ask questions, dig in your heels, and protect our home.
Peggy, I'd like to respond to one thing. You made comments about what I said. I was referring to bank buildings. I was not talking about developers. I was saying that a lot of banks are getting rid of real estate. My comment was meant to say, thinking in the future, what's the potential to happen in our area? One potential would be a bank would give up their space because so much stuff is being done online. So would you, if, say, Fifth Third Bank decides to close up, and they can't get another bank in there because they're not doing it anymore, wouldn't you like to be able to put like 3 houses there? Well, our current zoning does not allow that. The new zoning would. And that's the kind of stuff we're trying to do, is the things that you're talking about, is to allow residents to stay residents, to take the bank building down, and we could build residents there. The current zoning does not allow.
Well, Mayor Haas, I appreciate your comments, and I'm sorry that in any way I misunderstood what you were talking to the group of us about last summer. But I will point out to you that in the proposed zoning code, where the banks are, could not go back to single-family houses.
Yes, that was discussed at our last.
No, sir.
No.
No, sir.
No.
No, sir.
No. No.
What we talked
It is
about.
being discussed.
What we talked to in planning, what was decided by planning, was decided by planning commission, and what was decided by city council was that where the houses are now could be houses, but where Fifth Third is, where US Bank is, and where Garden State Bank is, and I don't know about near stuff, I'll let that one go. That we could not get but Mayor Haas, I am thrilled that you are in favor of that. Absolutely, if that's what you're telling us.
It was discussed. We haven't made that final decision yet. That'll be talked about. I'm sorry, I was just, I wanted to.
Just because we're talking about that actual zone, it was proposed right now that this is something that we're going to talk about in the joint meeting, the informational session that we had with them. I had asked them, they were proposing that across the street there where Fifth Third is in houses, that a building could be up to 75 feet wide. And there was no restrictions listed on density, there was no restrictions listed on depth. So I asked, real quick, I pulled up on LinkGIS, the lots are about 250 feet deep, 220 feet deep. So under the proposed zone, you could buy 3 of those houses, and we were talking about you could build them back as houses, but you can also buy 3 and build a 75-foot wide building that was 180 feet deep and 2.5 stories. And if you have 2.5 stories on a building that big, you essentially have a 3rd story, because the definition of that half story is that it uses no more than 60% of the footprint of the building. So, and we are in our joint meeting, because we're talking about this. One of the things that I was going to suggest it at the meeting Wednesday, but I'll just suggest it now, because it seems like a lot of people have stood up just to talk about the Mayberry feel, which we all want, is that once we finish this, because we're so far into it, we finished the 4th draft. And one thing about these drafts is the drafts are, the changes in each draft is a comparison of the previous draft, not a comparison to what we have now. So it's a progressive kind of thing. What I would suggest is we have what we look at as the final 4th draft, and then go back, and we have it. It's on the website, we can all look at it, everybody can look at it, and then we touch base on the comprehensive plan and see if it actually agrees with what we want now. Not what the comprehensive plan was 6 years ago, but we do a new study, because when you look at that brand fuel study, it was like 96% of the people want it to be Mayberry, and that's what the focus should be, whether or not anybody here is an expert on zoning or not. It should be looked at, and maybe it takes a little bit longer to approve it. Maybe a good change comes out of looking at the comprehensive plan again. But that would satisfy.
I've been up here for 3 years talking to you guys. I'm sure you're sick of hearing me, but I've been saying for 3 years, why on earth would we do a zoning change, in excess of $100,000, 3-year, 440-page zoning change based on a comprehensive plan from 2018 that has elements in it that the citizens said they didn't want? It makes perfect sense to me, but it's just me, that you work on the comprehensive plan first, and then you do the zoning redo.
Right.
Now that makes sense.
I completely agree with you, but we are like, at the 5 yards from the touchdown on getting it done. So you might get it done.
Game over. Game over.
Look at the comprehensive plan, and then we can adjust it. At least we have something to adjust.
So in your 5 now, sorry.
Well, no, I mean, I'm trying to put this all together. I've said for a long time the comprehensive plan was supposed to be done by the end of last year. From the survey we did in the original comprehensive plan and the one that Brandfield did, Mayberry came back overwhelming. People they want historical overlays, they don't want a lot of change. They like the city the way it is, right? But the comprehensive plan is pretty open for interpretation. Now, we had to do a comprehensive plan by the end of last year, but I don't believe there's any ramifications if we don't have it done. It's pretty much so. I do agree with Andy, however, that we are close to the end of this, but I don't think that we have to sign off on it. I think there are a lot of good changes in what we have, but there's also a lot of mistakes that need to be corrected. And I think it would benefit us, if Andy, correct me if I'm wrong on this, if we finished but didn't vote on it and then revisited a new comprehensive plan, at the very least a survey to see what they want to make sure that the zoning overlay we're doing is in line with what the people want. Because we only have a couple meetings away from put a check mark on a few boxes, and it doesn't go into effect unless we vote on it. So I think we could hold back our vote, have the planning and zoning do another comprehensive plan, or at least take a look at the old one, perhaps do another survey, and then revisit it.
One problem with, and this has always been my thought about starting new with a comprehensive plan, is I don't know how many people have read it, but I've read it twice, and you can derive anything you want out of it. If you are a developer, you can derive, they want development. If you want small town feel, you can get anything you want out of it. But if we have a benchmark, which, not that it will be our benchmark, but a benchmark for this discussion in the form of a final draft, we have something to actually review to where and maybe an outside group can look at it and say, this is a huge change from what you have right now. And then people can look at that and say, well, I don't want that. And then we can go back.
I think both our surveys give us a benchmark. You know what I mean? I think there was 1,000 people in the original survey, which is pretty significant. And then we had another survey by Brandfield, which did a fantastic job. And I think as simple as a survey, asking similar questions put out by an organization would give us an understanding. We have a very engaged community right now. So I think we can work on that at the same time that we're finalizing.
I don't want to say this, though. I agree with what Andy has said. I think you can go anything you want to have a comprehensive plan. Peggy's done an amazing job over the past few years of drawing out aspects that support her position. And I think that position is a very popular position, and for good reason. I just do want to say that it's not like we started this process in 2019 assuming it would end in 2024. We ran into COVID. then we put it into a pause. We brought a lot of public involvement in. We've had meetings where the public can meet with Alyssa, our expert. This is going on much longer than anybody ever expected. Not saying anybody was wrong for that occurring. I'm just saying it is what it is, and it's happened. And now we are at the 5-yard line, and I think there's a decision that we do need to go forward with this.
Why?
And
Why are we?
Why?
Why?
Because number one, legally
Why
it's
do we need to
acceptable.
go forward?
Because legally it's acceptable. It's time that this gets done.
But we don't want it.
We
We
don't
don't
want
want
it.
it.
Well,
We don't want it.
actually, what you didn't want was the old zoning. The old zoning allowed a lot of what you didn't like. This new zoning is better. It's moving in the right direction. I don't think you'll ever find a zoning that everybody just loves. But this zoning is definitely moving in the right direction. A lot of good things happen.
We don't want it.
Wait, hold on, guys, 1 second. I'm confused. So, do we legally have to vote on the zoning this year? No.
We do not,
But we legally had to do a comprehensive plan by the end of last year.
Which you didn't.
We reviewed the comprehensive, we legally, by ordinance. So I'm just confused on why we're not just doing that at the end of this or doing it in the meantime.
I think Tim's point is that if we do not adopt this new zoning, then what you all don't want to happen can happen tomorrow because we're still on our old zoning. And I'm interpreting what you're saying, Andy, is let's go ahead, adopt the new zoning, review it, and at least then we have better zoning.
I was saying have a final draft on the city website that has not been voted on. And look at that, and so there's, like looking at, like the 2012 zoning code. You're right, you can look at it, there's two, it's such a change. There are things in the old zoning code that this new zoning code, in my opinion, work better at making this small town zoning. There's also things in the new code that go against
A lot of things in the new
so
code.
there's both on both sides. So that's why I'm suggesting we have a final document. We stop the CT consultants for a minute, unless we want to consult them, obviously. And then we look at what these changes are compared to what we have now. Because up until right now, we've been looking at changes from the last draft. We stopped looking at changes from how it is now.
Andy, we
All
asked
right,
for that.
let's move on with the next people on. Tiffany Huber next.
Tiffany, would Sharon
Yeah.
So taking a little bit of Sharon's time, I just want to respond. I would just like to respond to what was said.
Too many people are talking at one time, I can't. Okay, go ahead.
Sharon's been saving her time. I just want to respond to a few things that were said, and one of the things you said about how the brand fuel survey said that this is what people wanted this to be like Newberry. In the 3 years that I've been coming to city council meetings, never once in a city council meeting, never once in a planning commission meeting, and never once at the coffee and conversations with Elisa has anybody come and said they wanted anything except for what we have right now. Not one person ever come and said, hey, we want more apartments. Nobody's ever come and said, hey, let's put apartments on top of commercial. And number 3 is no one's ever said, let's get rid of our historic charm. If you want to make mayor this, what we have right now, what I'm asking you to do, what I asked you to do, and what I just read was, ask Elisa, our zoning consultant, Elisa W. Rogers, to go out, walk around, and change it in the future, but put zoning in place that mirrors what we actually have. In our commercial district, like for example, down at Cater Hardware and Frisch's, the folks down there are used to one story of commercial. They're not used to commercial with levels of apartments on top. In 2019, City Council, without a single word of discussion, revised the zoning code to allow for residential over commercial in the entire city. So what I'm asking you to do, and what I'm asking you all to support, and what I think everybody here supports, is have the zoning consultant write up an ordinance, an appropriate legal review to mirror what we actually have right now. That's the secret sauce. That's the special thing, is what we have right now. Downtown Milford is a beautiful district with 2-story buildings. We have 1- and 2-story buildings here, not 44 feet, 6 feet down from One Highland. We have 1- and 2-story buildings
Most of our commercial is 1- and 2-story buildings. There's not apartments on top of most of our commercial. That's what I'm asking you tonight. Please redirect the zoning consultant to stop trying to cater to developers and to do what the citizens want to do. Keep Fort Thomas the way it is. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Tiffany Huber, 26 Hawthorne Avenue. This is not my first time up here, and it won't be my last, I'm sure. I just want to second what Peggy said, because she took the majority of what I was going to say for this meeting, so it actually shortens what I had to say. I really think what the city needs to look at is, how did we get here? And we got here because there was a lack of transparency. People want to understand, why are we still talking about One Highland? Part of the reason we're talking about One Highland, it's not the fact that One Highland is sitting there right now, although it kind of is. It's more about the process you took to get there. Yeah. An entire lack of trust from the citizens as it relates to city council. And unfortunately, Mayor, I hate to say this, but the buck stops with you, because you're the one in charge of the city. And so you all had a vision for what you wanted, and you thought you knew better than what the citizens wanted. But those surveys clearly said that's not what we wanted, and yet we moved forward with this anyway. And we wonder why we have the rebuke, if you will, from the citizens, and that's the reason why. We want to work together with you. But you also have to give us other opportunities besides this one meeting to discuss this with you and come up with solutions for the future. And zoning does personally impact all of our neighborhoods, from the north side to the middle to Alexandria Pike. And what you may want from a development perspective is not what we as families want. And that's why we're here, because we enjoy all of the amenities Fort Thomas has to offer. And we continue to want that to be in our town. And so, Andy, I think you mentioned something about the comprehensive plan. You know, the comprehensive plan has a lot of appearances in there of certain people getting their information into the plan that they wanted. And so therefore, you're right, it has different interpretations. And so that's a real problem, because we really should have come up with goals together that we wanted. And I feel like, and this is no disrespect to CT, but I feel like on some level, they're making it more confusing from the comprehensive plan and more confusing from the zone plan. And I will also say, the coffee and conversations that we went to for time after time after time, a lot of that feedback did not come back to you, or if it did, our feedback was not represented in the way that it should have been by coffee and conversations. So we don't even feel like that's a valuable resource for us to use to give you the information. That's why on March 18th, I hand-delivered to both her, Elisa, you as council, as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission, what input was actually conducted by the city in terms of the survey results. And that's just not something that we can ignore when the majority want one thing, yet it seems like the city is moving in a different direction. I think that's why we're having the rub that we have today. And again, we support One Highland. I absolutely freaking love the Green Line. Do I love maybe that it impacts some neighbors, that needs to be cleaned up? Sure, but I love the Green Line. Now, I don't know what happened behind the scenes. I can't say. But the only thing I will say is that if there is absolutely any conflict of interest that could be construed, that person needs to stand down. Because you should be working hard to make sure that there are no conflicts of interest in terms of what you're doing and in terms of the deals that you're making. And even if your intentions were good, you just cannot have that as something that follows you as a question mark. So again, I agree that a comprehensive plan is needed. I think we do have more people involved. I think we do have more people who are watching what's going on. And again, it's a transparency issue. I know I've personally been asking for over 6 years to have a website that has event notification, that somebody can sign up for an email. I know Tom Morrison is here, sorry to call you out, Tom, but we were asking for that back in 2008. The other lack of trust is you work on things that are important to you, but your citizens tell you that something else is important, that we want to know what's going on in our city. We want to be involved. We want to be engaged. And yet, we don't really feel heard. And we don't feel heard because we're not seeing the results that we're asking for. And so, again, I just want to thank Peggy for coming up and sharing what she shared. But I do think...
Tiffany, it's over 5 minutes.
I have extra time. Chris Huber.
Okay.
I do want to say that when your city feels like there's a lack of trust and transparency, even irregardless of what happened at the last council meeting, it's not a good look for our city and it's not a good look for our town. And so you have to ask yourself, if that is what is happening with the town, is that something that you think is good for the town? And is that something that you want to continue to be part of, where the citizens don't trust, don't have the transparency, and don't feel like their city government is working for them? I think that's all that I have. Thank you for your time.
I'd like to say something and kind of follow it up, because it's something I've been saying a lot. And I just think that it's unfortunate, but time has turned into this, and not just with us, but with everybody. And I was going to read a little something later, but I think that we have a legislative body and executive branch for a reason. There's supposed to be a checks and balances system. And it seems like somewhere along the line, the legislative body stopped working for the people and started working for the administration. And I don't think that was just something that happened over time. You get in here, you're in the inside circle, they give you information. It doesn't feel like maybe the outside is saying the right things or doing the right things. And I think a lot of times what I have felt like, I can't speak for anybody else, and I can't speak, but I feel like we're being steered. And I think for some reason we've lost the trust of the public immensely. And I think transparency is what you want to be open. And I think the legislative body, as an elected official, the reason I got into this was to represent you and your voice. You know, not my thoughts necessarily. I don't always agree with everybody that comes up to me, but if the majority want that, I feel that's how I push it. And I think we need to get back to where we represent you. And I think that in the last election, I think you can see wholeheartedly that you guys voted and you put 2 people at the top of the list. You know what I mean? Because you wanted some new blood, you wanted some new people in here, and you wanted some transparency, and you want us to listen to you. And I hope that you understand that. I believe that a lot of us up here are, but I just hope to get it back to where it was. And that was my intention from everything I've ever done, is to get back to working for you guys, you know, and representing you to the best of my ability. So thank you to everybody. Seriously, I know there's more people that come up here, but if it wasn't for a lot of hard work, information you've done, I wouldn't have been able to dissect what was going on and see it with a clear light. So I'm hoping we get to the end of the tunnel and everybody's happy. I appreciate you.
We have another one on the list. Carrie Carnahan, maybe? I can't read.
She was my extra time, sorry.
Okay. And we are through with the list. We're moving on to the rest of the agenda. We are down to reports of officers. Fire Department monthly report.
Thank you, Mayor. So, with 4th of July right around the corner, 1 second. Yes. I heard Brittany's in the house. Come on up.
You sure, Brittany?
Oh, yeah.
We'll finish up you.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Sorry to shoot 2 minutes late before she couldn't find a parking spot. So but this is Brittany Fritsch from BF Realty. Being very lighthearted, very quick. So.
Hi, I'm not here to complain about anything. I am so glad I'm over here and not over there, because hot seats over there. Okay, so real quick, just real brief. I know everybody wants to wrap up, but yeah, parking was a nightmare when I got here, so I'm so sorry for being 2 minutes late. I am a Northern Kentucky girl. I have lived in Cold Springs, I have lived in Highland Heights, I have lived in Fort Thomas. And 15 years ago, my husband's career drug me kicking and screaming across the pond, up north, of which we never moved up north, we moved up from down south. So 15 years ago, I moved up there, in a quaint little town called Loveland, and I've had a lot of conversations like this before Google Loveland, Ohio, and we had all these conversations in city council meetings. Anyways, out of all the places I lived in Northern Kentucky, I grew up in Fort Thomas at Tower Park at the YMCA, just kind of walked back and forth. And all the places that I thought, where can I come back home to in Fort Thomas was it. So we just had our grand opening of our space in the old Kaleidoscope Dancing Studio, 1107 South Fort Thomas. The city has been in welcoming us and helping us restore a historic building and keeping the character of it. And the community too has been amazing. So the smiles and the warm welcome we have experienced, we're just excited to love on this community. And the fact that everybody's passionate about what's happening to it is a good thing, even though it's kind of really painful to get through. So that's it. Okay, thank you so much.
Let me follow her up real quick. I think Ben and I went to that opening. Ben, you were there. I don't know if anybody else made it. But if you have a chance and you're walking during the day up at the Midway District and you cross where she is, what's the address again?
1107 South Fort.
You would not believe the amazing job you guys did. I think your husband was a big part of that, of blending the old with the new. There are some seamless transitions to the walls you built, to the style of the ceiling that was in there, and you really did an unbelievable job. I was blown away. It actually, it was amazing to walk through to see the space that you created for that building that was already there. That was amazing. There was one open space, and now it is pockets of rooms. It's very engaging and warm and welcoming. You did a fantastic job. So I just wanted to compliment you. And if anybody gets a chance to walk by and they're up there, peek their head. It was fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. Everyone's been so awesome.
Look at the floors, right?
So Drew's not even here to appreciate that. That was the only thing my husband was allowed to pick out was the floors. So if you appreciate anything, it's the floors. But truly, out of all the places that I could have came and opened up our second location in, because I knew I was coming back home to the Bluegrass State, I chose Fort Thomas because I literally was raised at Tower Park. YMCA and Tower Park, and it was the friendliest place back then. It's still the friendliest place now, and we're super excited to be involved in the community and give back to the community that we serve. So thank you all for the warm welcome. Thank you for helping us to restore a historic building and keep it historical, and just the warm welcome has been amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. All questions real estate. Gotcha. Dropping taxes.
If I may, just tell me if this isn't the appropriate time to make these remarks, but you know, we've talked a lot about, obviously, thank you for voicing the opinions on the zoning conversation and the ongoing discussion. It's a moving target, and I do want to say something. I disagree with what you said, Adam, about the legislative branch being swayed or not working for the people. I just want to dispel that notion, because I can firmly say that we are, and including Adam. Adam is too, and he may say he's not, but he is. It's
working for the people.
Yeah, no, we're not being. Yes, we're all working for the people. This is a hard job. It really is, and the beauty of it is talking about zoning in particular. That we have so many passionate people, and I don't want to go into the details. It's been hashed out. We're going to meet at length on Wednesday about this, and we're going to continue to meet about it over the summer. But I know for a fact that everybody at this table, we're not in favor of adding density. We're trying our best. So thank you for your dialogue, and we just would ask for patience and continue to give us that dialogue. We really appreciate it. I want to say something about the other elephant in the room, because I feel like I'm obligated to. And that's the allegations that you brought up against the mayor. Is this, can I do that now, or are we gonna talk about this?
We're gonna do that old business, I think, would be good.
You guys tell me how you want to handle it.
Well,
You're
I
more than welcome to say
don't
public how
want
you
time to
feel,
get
so.
away.
Yeah, you're welcome. Speak up.
Well, let me just, it's been touched on by a few people and a few community members who spoke tonight. And I do feel strongly about it, so I felt obligated. And Adam, you didn't, and I wouldn't expect you to, but you didn't ask me my opinion. Again, I wouldn't expect you to before this was made public. So I want to tell you what it is now.
I was asked not to.
Okay, I respect that. And let me start by just saying
And
that.
by the way, the minute that time clock was up, I sent all the information to everybody. So it was something that I tried to do out of respect for what I had discussions with Matt and Tim. So when people say that, I was actually honoring what they had asked me to do, period.
I'm not suggesting.
And by the way, you didn't reach out to me in the last month, so.
It's a lot to digest, and I just want to share my thoughts, and I want to start by saying that, I was not on council in 2018 and 2019 during the discussions around Long Island. That's obviously a very hot button issue in town. There's a lot of great things about Long Island. I sure wish some more of those condos would have sold. And I agree with whoever brought it up earlier this evening that, I'm not going to accuse and say that the process was done improperly. I would like to know moving forward for our community what that process really looks like, just so it's more clear. This is nearing the end of my 4th year on council, and speaking specifically to Adam's letter to the mayor and to Matt Kramer in March, or his subsequent letter to council on May 20th, none of that came to me as new news. The bulk of Adam's complaints are in regards to the mayor's willingness to purchase the BB&T Bank building, which is where the Green Line is now, if necessary, to keep the development discussions with Rick Briley and North American Properties alive. I've known about this purchase agreement, or put option as it's been called many times, since being elected to council 4 years ago. Adam certainly also knew about it, as you brought it up several times in various meetings since. I don't think that agreement was any secret. So I do wonder why is this being brought up? Why are these allegations and calls for the mayor to resign being brought up now? It seems to me that Councilman Blau's allegations and timing of bringing them forth in a formal manner are either for political purposes or motivated by personal strife against the mayor. This saddens me, but it does not surprise me. When it comes to this put agreement, I can only speak to what I know and have been told by people who were involved in 2018-2019. First, the mayor sought out legal counsel prior to making any agreement and was advised on several occasions that there was nothing unlawful or unethical about willing to be financially involved to keep the project alive. As the mayor himself has stated, the reaction he received was of gratitude for his willingness to help out if necessary. There were no objections at the time. Now, it's important to note, as it's been brought up earlier, this is all a moot point, because the mayor was released from his financial agreement before any vote was ever taken on the One Highland development deal. Therefore, the allegation from Councilman Blau that Mayor Haas tried to influence the council to vote a certain way for his own financial benefit carries absolutely no weight. I am ashamed to even have to spend this time discussing it. Again, none of this is new information, so why is it being brought up now? Councilman Blau brings up other allegations that the mayor influenced council in some way. Drawing specifically from his letter to council on May 20th, Adam says that the deal with the Quarter Group to make Green Line Restaurant a reality, that, and I quote from that letter, Mayor Haas pushed the city to give an $850,000 forgivable loan to this restaurant group, end quote. I was on council, and I did vote in favor of this partnership with Quarter Group, so I can speak directly to this baseless allegation. The mayor never asked or pushed me to vote a certain way on this deal. My vote was based on the business plan submitted by the Quarter Group, submitted by the Quarter Group leadership, the testimony that they presented to City Council, discussion with city leadership and other council members, and more importantly than anything, the incredible opportunity to turn a vacant, deteriorating bank building in the center of our town into a quality restaurant for family and community to enjoy. Council agreed, as every member except Adam supported this project for our town. I had Father's Day brunch at the Green Line yesterday with my wife. The place was packed again, and I am proud to have had the opportunity to support that project. The mayor certainly didn't push or influence me. The other allegations in Adam's March letter seem to get more desperate in their attempts to connect lines that don't exist. That the mayor influenced council to push for a splash pad at the bottom of James Avenue, that the mayor has a grand plan to redesign Mayfield, as we heard earlier this evening, so that he can live near his children. It's literally in the letter. Any conversation we've had in my time on council relating to Highland Park, James Avenue, Mayfield, etc., have been about discussing options to consider before ultimately deciding where we might land to maximize our impact for the community. In my mind, that is healthy conversation and how local government should operate. It's laughable to me that I have to say this, but I will say it anyways. Unequivocally, the mayor has never attempted to influence any vote that I have taken Frankly, it's a strike against my ability to lead as a public servant, and it's insulting to suggest otherwise. I'm frustrated by Adam's allegations against the mayor. In my time on council, I've witnessed attacks against the integrity of community members. I've witnessed attacks against the integrity of council members. And now we're witnessing an attack against the integrity of Mayor Haas. We're so much better than that. At times we've stooped to the mindset that if someone disagrees or has a different opinion about something, then that person needs to go. I firmly disagree with that notion, which is why I felt compelled to speak tonight. I think that we have a great group of elected council members in Fort Thomas. We have a great city staff. We have great community members who are involved. And as I said earlier, the reason we're all involved is because we care so much. And different opinions or ideas do not threaten our community. They add to the dialogue and make each of us question our own beliefs so that we are firm in where we stand, and that is healthy. Lastly, I will not stand behind Councilman Blau's allegations against Mayor Haas, and I will not be a party to another witch hunt against upstanding people in our community. Mayor Haas has a track record of public service and leadership that frankly is unmatched in this room. I value his leadership, and I'm so excited about the progress that has been made in my time on council. We could go on and on, but the Green Line, the gorgeous new play area coming to Tower Park, pickleball at Highland Park. We'll have an opportunity for more green space and amenities as we choose at Carlisle Park, which frankly never would have been on the table without Mayor Haas. We aren't raising taxes. We have the best police and fire, bar none, in the area, and we're so blessed. We have a lot of work to do, don't get me wrong, to continue to improve. These baseless allegations are a distraction from the positive, collaborative progress that has been made. I will not be involved with them, and I encourage council not to be involved with them either. Thank you.
I think what you said, I don't have really much to rebuttal with on that, but I would like to say that I would grant anybody the opportunity to look back at any of the minutes from any meetings and see how often the put option was brought up publicly, which I don't think they're going to find any, possibly one. So you can say that it was a discussion that happened a lot, that everybody knows about it. But the public and for the transparency issue, I don't believe it was. As far as the Green Line restaurant, I don't know how they could have done it without that loan. And I think the investors are a fantastic group of individuals. I think they should be commended for wanting to improve our city, although I don't believe that we are in the business to give interest-free forgivable loans to businesses in town of roughly $150,000 when we have restaurants like The Post and we had Padrino's open at the exact same time and weren't offered the same incentives. As a matter of fact, we use their tax money to fund competition for them. And then when other businesses of their like caliber come up to us and wonder why they're hurting, it's because we're overloaded and we added one more to the pot. So I think it's very significant when it comes to why we did that. But when you say that Mayor Haas didn't influence you or push anybody in that direction, I would like to contradict that by saying we went to executive session to talk about this very thing, and Mayor Haas was the one who brought it up and suggested it was a great idea. So whether or not he's meeting with you, calling you, or texting you, that doesn't mean that he's not using his influence to push for that loan. And so I grant, please look it up, look in the minutes, see what was discussed publicly and transparently, and then for anybody to suggest that any one of us can be financially vested in a building or property in town and then continue to be a liaison for the city and push for a development agreement that would get them out of that is beyond, it's disgusting. We need to be better than that, and I represent them, you know what I mean? I don't represent the mayor, you know, so be very clear on that.
All right, so we're going to stay on this, Adam. I think last month you requested to see if any other council members wanted to sign your ethics complaint.
Well, I think that we discussed last month was what you guys had suggested was going into executive session to discuss this, and Ben had brought up several points about this, that the mayor needed to be there, we'd go back and forth, that he would leave the room, come back on the room.
I do not want to take this in executive session. I want this in public.
That's fine. That's what I suggested last time. I don't believe technically can go in executive session because.
Adam, let me intervene for 1 minute.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure it's clear. You said you guys wanted to, I think a lot of.
Well, I met with you too, and you said executive session was the
A lot
best.
of permeations were discussed. We could go into executive session, we could not. I don't feel like anybody, including Matt and I, were pushing for a certain thing. So I just want to clear that up.
Yeah, that's how it felt like to me. I apologize if I
I
spoke
think we're
inappropriately,
here
but
now.
because we talked about it last time and we got as far as executive session and how it would be handled and what would be done. Anybody can review the minutes from last meeting and watch the video to see that that was the discussion that was had. So now that has changed. I wanted it in public last time. I don't believe it should have ever gone to executive session. I believe you're not personnel, you're an elected official. I've looked into this, so I do believe it should be open for discussion. And frankly, you know, Mayor Haas, I just believe that the entire, as people have stated, and I think Ben, maybe please correct me if I'm wrong, you stated that we need to review the entire process. Would you just say that? We did make sure did you say that? I apologize.
No, I think it's clear that we need to review the process moving forward. I don't think done here.
I think that in order to review the process moving forward and how we do it, I think we have.
Adam, you just asked him a question and you didn't give him a chance to
I
answer.
thought he
Please,
finished. I apologize. Mayor Haas.
Let him
He's
finish.
a big boy. You know, my boss.
I'm not sure exactly what we're talking about, but you know how I feel about it, so.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I just thought that, as a whole, I think it's important for the public to be, that we review the process. I can't do anything about what happened in the past. I think that the process was skewed. I think in 2016 or 17, Dan Gorman started an LLC called One Highland. He then got financially involved in a few buildings that were there. He continued to recuse himself from the planning commission board, but then when you recuse yourself, you're not supposed to speak. And then he would get up and speak in favor of the project.
And
I'm not sure why we're bringing up.
I'm talking about the entire process.
Yeah,
So,
we already.
Hold on, no, we didn't review that. When we sent the review, listen.
That ship has already sailed.
When we read, I'm talking no, he wasn't cleared. It was sent to the ethics board whether or not he could read.
Nothing wrong during the ethics board.
Can you tell me exactly what we wrote to the ethics board? Because as far as I'm concerned, what I know is that we asked if he could actually be on the ethics board, not if he did anything wrong. Is that correct? Because as far as I know.
There was a finding, and.
No, I'm asking what was the question, because when you send something to the ethics board, it has to be very specific on the findings you want. And if you sent it to the ethics board saying that we want to review whether or not he can participate on the ethics board, is a big difference than if you send it to him and say, we are looking at these allegations against him and the things he did.
I read that advisory letter, and that was just a very generic answer to a question. It had nothing to do specifically with, I think, why that went there.
Well, they brought up the fact that he got guidance from the city attorney at the time, and that he shouldn't have been able to.
I just think they didn't do the question.
So let me go back to it. So I think that the whole process needs to be reviewed. I think there's a lot more to this, and I think in the future, these kind of situations can't happen. And how do we prevent that? We have to look at what we did before, so we can't do it again.
I'll say something since everybody's gonna say something about it. I agree with Adam and Ben that Mayor Haas did not do anything maliciously wrong. And I don't think he did anything for any financial gain. I would say that listening to the room, that there's a bunch of people that say, hey, this needs to be looked at, and there's a bunch of people that are saying, hey, there's nothing wrong here. So it would seem to me that everybody has something to gain by having it reviewed and creating a benchmark on moving forward.
You're talking about the ethics ordinance?
Well, no, just how, and it's really important right now because we're in the middle of finalizing a new zoning code. And the zoning code allows development. So what kind of development can happen from the city that citizens may or may not know about? It might be a good time to review the process of one.
Are you referring to the process moving forward or the process that happened? Are you specifically talking about with Mayor Haas, or are you talking about how?
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't say anybody's name specifically, because I think saying that one person's name is not fair. I think that you look, there's, there could be 20 people involved in the process. I just like to know, and the reason I say it's actually the reason I ran for city council was to be a steward for the city, and the reason for that is I went to get all the documents that had to do with, and essentially all the documents are the IRB. It's the development agreement is the IRB. It's all the IRB. And I think that the IRB was a very bad deal, and it was worded well. And for example, most IRBs get a payment in lieu of taxes. And that looks like, and if you read it, it actually said, The PBA determines the tax rate used in calculating payments in lieu of taxes for the term of this agreement, and will be total ad valorem real estate tax rates in effect with respect to real property in the city for each respective year the bonds are outstanding. So, it's figured by using the same method that everybody, property taxes get worked out. It says here, beginning with calendar year 2024 through year 2049, from the pilot payments received, the city shall transfer to the trustee, and the trustee, to read the trust indenture, is Huntington Bank. So Huntington Bank gets the money goes to the city, the pilot payment goes to the city then transfers the money to Huntington Bank as the trustee for the first $330,000 of the whole building collectively, and thereafter shall retain the amount in excess of $330,000, and from that money, that gets split up between the schools, the city, the county.
And that's a development agreement, right?
Yes.
You're saying it's the IRB, but that IRB is separate than that, correct?
But those are the terms of the IRB, and it's all one thing.
Right, okay.
So then if you look at, if you just lay out, I did a spreadsheet when I was running for city council, just to see with the increase in seat funding, just to see the differences of everything and how everything, I showed you.
We met them.
So for there to be $24 more than the $330,000 based on the property tax rate when I did this a couple years ago, the total value has to be $25,485,000. So if you take the value as of 2021 and add 2% appreciation every single year, that gets you out to 2036 that we'll get $24 from. Now, from then on, it does go up, but the reason I ran was the IRB wasn't that great of a deal. It just wasn't. So
the development wasn't that great of a deal because
all of it, but
that was a good deal for them.
It was a good deal for them. It was essentially $330,000 every year for that amount of time is their incentive, because that money isn't used by the city. It actually goes to service bonds.
And Andy, my only issue with this conversation is it's really not the conversation for tonight. Tonight, there's been an allegation of misconduct, and
that's exactly.
Let me just finish real quick. And really, I think the three avenues are: someone files an ethics complaint, and if other members want to join, they do that. If you think if someone feels so strongly that they file a motion for removal, you do that and you hear it. Or if you think that you want a motion for an independent investigation, you do that. But we're getting into whether or not it was a good project or not. That's not what these allegations are about. These allegations are about saying that the mayor did something wrong. So I think those three options are really what we need to focus on, as opposed to whether or not that was a good deal. Because that will be debated for a while.
Whether or not it's a good deal really is immaterial to what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that, and I already said that I don't think Mayor Haas did anything malicious or do anything to gain. So I don't know, maybe it's not an ethics, maybe it's just a review of the process on how this all happened. And I don't know who does it. Maybe that is Mr. Tracy had a good point. Maybe you have an outside group look at it, and it really plays hand in hand with us coming up with a new zoning code on moving forward on what the city and being everybody in this room does moving forward to help development with regard to what is in the new zoning code.
Maybe review what's in the ethics code so that we all are above board is the whole premise of this. I mean, I think if you want to, my idea was to have a conversation, get everybody's opinion, and see if anybody, how they felt about it. When I talked to Tim and Matt also, one of their suggestions was, if it gets to that point, to hire an outside counsel to investigate this, bring that back to us, and then we submit that to the ethics board. That was one of their suggestions. Yes. That was 100%. These things,
You guys say this.
Council, yeah, council can do that.
But
I
you
wouldn't
wouldn't
bring that to the ethics board. That
Well,
would
no,
be-
we'll
that
do
would
an outside
ignore-
investigation to
right.
bring to
The
us.
council could do their own investigation, ignore that we have an ethics board, which is not what I recommended, because why have an ethics?
You said have an outside, even Tim said you had a couple people you could recommend.
No, so this is how it should play out. That is that if somebody files an ethics violation, it goes to the ethics board. They make a determination, do they investigate it or if it's frivolous, right? And if they do investigate it, what I said is I would recommend to the board, if they say yes, it should be investigated, that we have an outside counsel do it. That way, that outside counsel could bring back the information, the ethics board can review it, make their determination. Their determination would be, there's no issues, or the determination is that person violated ethics, and they could at that point make a recommendation for and that recommendation goes to council. That's how.
I apologize if I misconstrued, that's what, but you did, I thought you did mention outside counsel, but I would like to say that as far as like trying to defend my accusations here is that, you know, you guys talk about all this, and Mayor Hoss is the one who did this, and he was financially vested in a building with the letter I gave you in February of 2019. Came to he came to a meeting and said, I did this. You know what I mean? We need to work on this financial agreement with Rick Riley, and part of that agreement was buying back the building for the price that he had told him that he would buy for if the financial agreement didn't go through. There is zero doubt that he crossed the line when he continued to be a liaison for the city, whether he gave up the play or not. And when I look at this, I look at it as, you know, we call it the appearance of impropriety, which I don't think, most people don't understand. Ethics is a very broad range. Black and white is legal, right, Tim? Yeah. And ethics is extremely broad range, right? And we should excuse ourselves anytime there's going to be an appearance of impropriety. As a matter of fact, when we were discussing the park, the Highland Park baseball field, Tim, you refrained from any comment because your brother was an investor and your partner was part working that deal. That was for $30,000. And you refrained from any comments or moving forward with that because, and I quote you, everyone, for the appearance of impropriety. I looked that up. It was on the council meeting on July 17th. I think it was 6/17/23 at 1 hour 15 minutes. Now, if our lead counsel is refraining from discussing this because his brother was involved in something, and his brother had been an investor in something, and his partner was, we're saying it's okay for our mayor to be financially vested in the outcome of a financial deal working with private development. That's what we're telling the people. That's okay for any of us to be vested in a business. And I'm not saying he did this maliciously. I know, I really do think he has a good intentions, a good heart, and does love full time. I've said that. I do say that. That doesn't make it right. And it doesn't mean we should investigate it as a whole to make sure this doesn't happen again. That's all I'm asking. That we investigate the whole process from soup to nuts, have it done, update everything, and make sure that in the future, I can't do anything about the past. What I can do is use the past to make sure we work towards a better future so that we are transparent and we are doing things above board. We aren't crossing lines. Period. It's just that simple. But you can't tell me that that isn't the case. I can believe that you love Mayor Hoss and you respect him and believe in him. It doesn't, just because you believe it doesn't make it right. And I just want everybody to know, how do you feel about it? Do you think that we need to move forward as a whole? You can say yes or no. It doesn't, you know what, you're not going to hurt my feelings. But if you say no, then you believe that it's okay for us to be financially invested in a deal and then work out on behalf of the city to further that deal. That's what you're saying. Period. Regardless of getting up to put option 1 month before the vote.
In your words, that's what you think you would be saying.
That's 100% what you're saying because that's what he did.
So much the way you got to
That's
walk,
fine.
right? So, yeah, I do myself pretty good on that.
Get it?
So, how do you want to move forward?
I would like to move forward. I'd like everybody a chance to talk about this and see how they feel because I think the public has, if we want to do this in public, the public has a right to know how everybody feels about this situation.
Am I making a motion?
I still want to hear from the rest of them. Gotcha. I want to hear.
So Andy has said no to an ethics violation.
Or how about we review the policy? Review the whole procedure for one island. What do you think?
Yeah, we keep mixing stuff, but that's just we can definitely review.
No, it's all part of the same problem. It's a development agreement, how One Highland was formed, and he was a part of it.
Do we need to make a motion in order to?
We don't need motions. What you said is you want to review the process, you don't care what happened in the past, but.
I want to fix it because there's no way he's leaving. No way, obviously, it takes a 6-0 vote to get him out. That's not happening. But I think we should review. If I've talked to Andy about this, and I've talked to Strange a little bit about this, and they agree that the process needs to be reviewed.
I agree with that too, but it's totally different than alleging a ethical misconduct.
Well, it wouldn't need to be reviewed if there wasn't a misconduct. That's what I'm saying. It would not need to be reviewed if it was above board.
But I don't think that's what Andy said, that that's why it needs to be reviewed, because there's an ethical misconduct. Like you said, the opposite.
I would like to just see it reviewed.
Okay.
And you know, if there is something ethical, wouldn't that come out in a review? Wouldn't that put everybody, both sides, at a, you know, anybody that says, hey, nothing wrong happened here, I think they'd be happy here, nothing was wrong. Anybody that thinks there's
If there's nothing wrong, why not do it?
That's what I'm saying.
We think there's certain learnings from it where we can better define
exactly.
where is the line of something being ethical and even having the appearance of being unethical, and then it would be more clearly defined as we go forward with future development, which will surely happen at some point somewhere in the city.
Right.
Lauren, how do you feel?
I mean, I think we have, sorry, this isn't one, but I think we have rules in place that, for this very reason. And I think when we all voted for the ethics board, it was because they have great resumes, great, you know, reasons for being on that. So if that's the route you want to go, yes, I agree. I don't necessarily think we're at I think that kind of outlined it very well. I don't think we're at a point where we need a outside counsel. That's why we have this ethics board. And knowing one of them in a professional sense, I know he's not gonna have a biased opinion.
I believe in ethics board. I believe.
But I mean, if that's the route we wanna go, then yeah, I think we can learn a lot from it, so.
Are you referring to Mayor Haas, the situation, or are you referring to the process? The process is.
The process is.
The entire One
That's
Highland,
why
One
we
Highland
have an
agreement
ethics
was set.
committee, whether he was a vote on it or not, I mean, I think that's the route I would prefer to go. I don't think there needs to be a third party necessarily at this point. Now, if we all come back around and totally disagree, maybe half of us agree with the ethics, half of them don't, then we can look at a third party, but I think that would be a good starting point.
So you think, what I'm gathering here, and let me be clear on this, Andy, please correct me. You'd like to review the process on how One Highland and the development agreement came into play and all the players involved in it.
So I think that, I mean, I guess that's something we all would need to decide on, right?
I mean, we don't all have to decide on it.
Not all,
I mean,
but
I think it's very prudent that we look at it, and if you want to listen.
I think what Adam's trying to do is trying to rope in both situations into one. So there's a situation that he's accusing Mayor Haas of impropriety. That's one situation. The other situation is, should we look back at what happened in the process, and being a part of the process, I admit, we learned a lot from it. I mean, there was a lot that we could have done differently at the time and then going afterwards, but it's a learning process. It's not my profession. It's not what I do for a living. I was relying on the professionals around me, and when we went through the process afterwards, a lot to learn from it. So yes, I agree that we could probably reevaluate the project itself, but the players in the project, I think that's completely different. So me being a part of, and Adam was a part of it as well, so.
I just want to be very clear that when he says I tried to rope everybody in this, I was very clear on my intent. I thought the smoking gun here is what Mayor Haas did, and then talking to Andy and Eric, they wanted the entire overview. They thought that was the best way to look at this. So I was trying to do my best to create any collateral damage that might happen from this and focus on one thing. That's why I spent 2 months behind the scenes working with them to prevent this conversation, prevent more damage that could be.
Adam, you try to get him to resign by, in my determination, probably like a blackmail. You either resign or we'll put this out in public.
I just want you to know that I talked with the Kentucky League of Cities, and this is the direction they told me to go. And that's all I can tell you. I don't know what else to tell you other than I tried to prevent this mess that's happening right now.
It is,
you know, and I did my best. And I thought I was doing the right thing by communicating with the people that were a lot smarter than me about this. You can turn around any way you want. There's no malicious intent. There's no political intent. Nobody's walking me around telling me that I'm going to be the next mayor. As far as I know, no, you know, here's the funny thing is, I don't determine who the mayor is. They do. They determine who the mayor is, not me.
Now, my advice would not have been the same as KLC. My advice would have been, hey, if you think there's an ethical violation, go file it.
Well, that, I
don't
don't know
if you think
anything
there's an
about
ethical violation, then you should make a motion to file a complaint, or file a complaint.
I just thought as a whole that we represent everybody. I thought it was better that we had a discussion open for transparency, and that was my take on it. Else I would have done it that way.
I think that being an elected official, moving forward, if I decided, I want to keep doing this for the next 10 years, I would like to see a better procedure in place. I don't want to be in the same situation that Mayor House is in, to be honest with you. So, if you want, so yes, I think that if you want to, number one, look at the procedure. I think we start there. Because I don't want this to happen to someone else. I don't want it to happen to anyone else in this room. So let's get some clarity. Let's see what happened, what went wrong. And if, again, if we feel like that we need to go further in that, then we should. So I think that's a good starting point, and I feel like you would agree with that.
I mean, I always agree with procedure and policies are the best way. When you first sit down, it seems like they always say policies and procedures, follow these policies and procedures. But it seems like sometimes the administration changes the policies and procedures that best choose the path of least resistance for what they want. That's how I feel about it. And I think it's been like that for a long time. And I think that in today's world, we need to cross our T's, dot our I's with social media, internet, and the way people are, that we need to be more buttoned up than we ever were before, because everything gets out there. And that's why it's the appearance of impropriety. When there's a slightest chance of appearance of impropriety, it is wrong. It's unethical, period. So you say that, but I don't understand what you mean and how you want to go about looking at the process. Do you want to look at the whole One Highland and the financial agreement and how to soup the nuts on that? Or that's what I'm confused about. So, and I do trust our ethics board. I don't think we need to get an ethics board to do this. I believe in them wholeheartedly. I also do believe that I reached out to Matt last week that our ethics ordinance is out of date. It hasn't been updated since the early 90s when it was first instituted. He's been in discussion. He's been bringing this up with Corey Flyvon to update that. And I believe Corey's been working on that. And before any of this goes in front of the ethics board, I do believe that they should be up to date on the standards and practices of the state. You know what I mean? So that we are up to par, because apparently we're pretty out of date.
Mayor, can I make a statement? I've got a dog in this farm.
No.
Out of order.
So Adam, are you saying you want to update the ordinance before you file it?
I would like, I was going to bring that up a little later, that I think that our ethics board should be brought up to par before anything moves forward with this, because I think that in the appearance of, without the appearance of impropriety, I don't want to make sure we're missing anything when we do this. So I don't think that'll take very long. I mean, this isn't going to happen. No one's going away. Mayor Hoss isn't leaving. Nobody's going to, obviously, it takes a 6-0 vote to impeach him regardless. It's not going to happen. I just want to prevent this from going forward in the future and anything like this happening again. So I think to do this the right way, does anybody disagree with that? I'd like to make a motion.
We're working on that. Like I told you, when Corey's going to have something for the next 30 days. Let me explain to council. I talked about this probably 6-9 months ago, that when we started dealing with the opinion. Yes, the advisory opinion. I don't know why I can never remember that. When we started talking about the advisory opinion, I started working with Corey, who just came onto the board. Him and I've updated an ethics ordinance in the past when I asked city, and him and I discussed in depth some of the changes we could start looking at. So I've talked to Corey over this time. Now that he's getting a little more free at work, he's in the next month and a half, he's going to provide a draft changes that he wants to look at. So him and I are going to sit down, take a look at it, and then once we kind of hit everything, since I've had experience with updating an ethics ordinance as well, once we have a good proposed ordinance, we're going to have an ethics board meeting where the 3 attorneys who are on the ethics board can review it and make tweaks and make a solid recommendation to council. At that point, probably Corey or one of the ethics board members will present that to council and say, explain this is the updates for the ethics. And then that'll give you council an opportunity to make changes and then ultimately vote on it. So that's just the process that Corey and I have been working on in detail over the last 3 months, or over the last month, that we've kind of created that plan now that he's having a little bit more time to do this. But that'll probably take another 3 to 4 months by the time he gets a good foundation. I review it with him. We bring it to ethics board and then bring it to council and have 2 votes on it. So just to let everybody know. I mean, I feel like that's a good first step on this. But at the same time, I don't want your 90 pages just sitting out there for 4 months either.
I want to make sure it's done the right way.
Call for motion.
Well, the problem, we don't need a motion. It's what, the only problem I would have is saying you're gonna file an ethics complaint and then changing the ethics ordinance and then file an ethics complaint. I don't know if there's any issues with
Well,
that.
I think we can
There's
update
a real
it.
good argument that you're stuck operating
Under the current anyway, would be I would think would be a challenge, you know what I mean?
I don't know, because
You can't create it, and then.
Like, I just sent him an ordinance today, because we're talking about scooters and golf carts and stuff like that, and it says every 5 years, we need to update our stuff, and we haven't updated in 30 years. I think, do I have a printout, did you read that there? KRS, right? So we're behind the times on that. So I would argue that we haven't updated it, and we're supposed to, by law, have it updated by now, so I would believe that we need to go with the update.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, and some of the stuff that I think I talked to Eric about is that within that ordinance, we can address some of the issues with One Highland, just to give some clarity on that. And if there are any questions from council, it could clearly state in there that, hey, if you do think there might be some ethical violation or could be in the future, that's when you do the advisory opinion and request an advisory opinion. This is how you do that, and this is the process. Right? So that way, that can get laid out, and I think that might address some of the issues that you're talking about, Lauren, and maybe even he's talking about.
Eric, you haven't said much. How do you feel about this? What do you think?
I think like this, so they would be doing the same thing then, like, what was it called, warning opinion?
Advisory
opinion. They didn't look at the specifics of it, they looked at is someone in his position.
Right, because there was no ethics violation charge, nobody had filed a charge.
Against Dan Gorman?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, which is different than what they're saying, that they looked at an overview, they didn't.
It is different, because nobody would file do a sworn statement. What's that, you didn't?
Nobody did. I didn't, because you told me you guys were filing it, so I was misunderstood how it was being addressed.
Okay.
So they were saying someone in his position, could he, serve on the commission, based on certain things? So I'm saying, let's look at the same situation the same way, looking at the different offices when we do deals. Should you be involved in ownership of property and however that looks, so that going forward we know where the lines are. Because I think there's some serious disagreement about what is unethical and what's not. I mean, I don't know that any of us should be playing developer, sitting in that seat.
But I mean, it's clearly written what conflicts of interest are. You know what I mean? A conflict of interest essentially occurs when public officials or employees' decisions could be influenced by personal interests. Period. It's just that simple.
Language is simple, but it's a big question.
It's pretty simple though. If there's a personal interest or vested, does anybody here on council believe that they have a financial obligation to a property in town, that they should somehow be allowed to be involved in the development deal that we are working with as a city? And then that would recuse them of the problem. Yes or no? Yeah, it's simple yes or no question.
But that's not the scenario though. This was a development that started and that happened there. So I mean, it's a little different than what you just explained. It is. If he would have owned the property before all this started, then I see what you're saying. That's what you just described.
It's even worse though, because he was privy to inside information and used that to facilitate a deal. So it's even worse than that. So
Well, it's worse than that. Okay, we
no, not okay, Eric. We're discussing this. You can't cut us off. So we're trying to get to the bottom.
Excuse me, I would like to speak my mind about this, Adam. You've interrupted people all night long. I don't care what you all do. All I know is that when this thing occurred, I was trying to help the city. There were at least 6 or 7 attorneys throughout this entire project, and not one person said to me, they all said, wow, that's really nice of you. Had they said, wow, that's really nice of you, but you know what, it might look bad, I would have said, okay, how else can we solve this problem? That's my bottom line. I would have said, how else can we solve this problem? But nobody said that because it was no issue. But if you want to take it to the Board of Ethics and let them review it, that's absolutely fine. I don't have a problem with the idea of reviewing a process, but that's the job as a mayor, is to deal with developers along with these 2 gentlemen right here when something comes to the city. So Can we move on?
So just, I mean, we are gonna be moving along with the.
I mean, I think it's funny that the lawyers that are being paid had no problem with it, but, that the city and council and even Roger asked him to leave the room when he knew he had a financial vested interest in it. You know, when we were discussing it once we found out.
You left it volunteer.
And I think, then.
We asked him to leave. I was there. I just think that's
And I think
a statement.
I think there needs to be an ethics violation, put on it, right? I mean, if that's what you think, then I think that's that part moving forward. Bigger part is we're going to update the ethics ordinance. We're going to include things to help guide developments in the future. If you would let me think about this One Highland process, because the One Highland process, I mean, I've looked at it, it's pretty typical how it happened, from the development agreement, and it becomes to council for votes. So that's I've done a lot of those agreements. It's pretty typical. I don't see any process difference. Now that, you know, obviously this, you know, with the mayor trying to keep that building a restaurant, that's different, right? But other than that, everything else
Financial
is
statement,
pretty.
get a financial outcome from it, yeah.
So that's different. But the rest of it happened how it's pretty typical. So what I want to do is I want to reach out and see, and I'm sure there's processes in the state that have laid this out, because I mean, I've done a bunch, and I'm sure something shows how it should be done. So if you would, let me research that, and I can get that to council just to have something. I'm sure there's already something written out there. I just don't want to reinvent the wheel. Why waste that time? I think it's already done. We can take a look at that and review it and kind of side by side One Highland. But I think the biggest part, like you were saying, you want to move forward, make sure this doesn't happen again. We're going to continue to work on the ethics ordinance, and I think that's the important thing at least from my end, that I want to make sure we start moving that, and I can start getting some timelines on when that's going to be brought to the ethics board and then brought to council. Is that a good resolution for tonight?
I mean, I think it's the next step. I think it's a nice conversation to have, and my goal, and no matter what anybody thinks or what anybody says, come to me. I just want to prevent future mistakes from happening and people being involved that shouldn't. I just want to create the neon eyes, and I want the public to know exactly where we stand and how involved we are. That's it. I think that's what they want. We want to get their trust back. That's how we do it.
Okay.
I think as part of that, though, I would like to have a clear understanding of what individuals in their offices should or should not be involved in certain capacities throughout the development process.
Yep.
I think that's the biggest. And what involvement.
And that'll be a part of that, what I said, that's gotta be, somebody has already laid this out, because it's pretty typical. The executive branch.
How I got to this point, I looked at it. Oh, 2 years.
What's that?
I looked at it all, that's how we got to this point.
Where do you have?
I mean, I have all the laws and rules and all that stuff like that, how we got to this point.
We're talking about the process, we're talking about the procedure on doing developments. Is that what
I
you're
was
saying?
talking about the agreement and what was wrong with the agreement, how we got to that point.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I thought we were talking about something different.
All right, so what I said, is that a good moving forward, and then I'll give an update on that next month.
Do you need a motion or?
I don't need any motions.
Okay, can we go to the reports of officers? Anybody else? All right, reports of officers. Chief, you want to try it again?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor and Council. Y'all have your report. I'll entertain any questions from my report. Yeah.
Move to receive and file. Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Police Department report, Chief.
I also don't have anything to add to the report tonight, Mayor.
Entertain a motion to file. Is there a second?
I'll say.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. City Administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor. A few updates tonight. We do have Tower Park Playground that's nearing completion. We do have ribbon cutting on July 4th at 4 p.m. The other two dangerous oaks that have been removed, they were removed last week. So we are good with all the trees that are there now and all the ones that they've planted. So did you have anyone?
Yeah, we discussed potentially moving the opening of the park so early in the day, post parade,
perhaps, when there's a lot of people there.
It'll be officially open.
The reason we picked 4 p.m. is because the festivities start at 5. So that way we can have that. The problem is, I mean, we can do whatever you guys want, but I don't know
What was this request?
when. We don't know to move the time up for the July 4th ribbon cutting for the Tower Park.
At the end of the parade.
But when is that? That's the problem with put time on that.
But, yes.
When the parade's over, people will walk there for the ribbon
Yeah, that way
cutting.
it's
And
open
that way
all
the
day for
kids
kids.
play.
We do the ribbon cutting earlier.
Yeah, but if I don't give it time, it's just like.
What kind of time?
What time's the parade?
10.
So maybe 1 o'clock? So how long did the break it? We're in front, so I don't remember.
You can wait and watch the rest of it.
That's right.
My dog slows down last year.
12:30?
I'll be more prepared.
We're gonna be, I mean, I'm just concerned about clearing out, so if you're in the parade to get back to that, it might be a challenge. I mean,
Especially stop by
we don't
people.
know what.
What time were you thinking? I'm sorry, I didn't know.
4 p.m. We picked 4 p.m. because the city started at 5.
Should we do 9 a.m.?
That way everybody there.
9 a.m. or 8 a.m.?
Before the, I don't even run it, but
Part of
it's
the
crazy.
problem.
Oh, is it? I'm not sure.
There'll be people that, I see your point, they start at 5, but there'll also be people there in the morning. And that's, we're gonna stay because of that.
No, I get it. My problem is we just have a moving target, and if we,
Just set it for 1 o'clock.
what if it pushes back, or we can't get, people can't get back there by 1 o'clock because of the parade, or that's my own. We can just, that's, I'm just telling you, my concerns, if we wanna do 1 o'clock, that's fine, we've been advertising that for, but we can definitely change it. But, we want to do 1 o'clock?
No.
And change it, or anybody on council have anything? Or we can.
It is crazy, like right now, I just worry about people trying to actually get there.
Should we just do ribbon cutting at a later date and just let people enjoy the park? I mean, because that's a problem.
You
You're
guys
trying
can
to
do,
wrangle.
you can tell us what to do all you want.
I mean, you're trying to wrangle a bunch of cats. We're tired after the thing. You get stopped by a bunch of people.
No, not till next year.
No, I think we can do an official ribbon cutting later where we can all get together and enjoy it and make another day out of it and bring more people to the park again. I mean, it's at the end of that parade, it's hot. It could be 90 degrees that day. People are tired. You run into a lot of people at the end.
Just keep it at 4. You already had said there were late announcements.
Oh, is there an announcement already out there? Oh, I didn't know that. I'm sorry. I was suggesting that because I didn't realize there was an announcement. Okay.
Right.
I apologize. I didn't know there was an announcement already.
Yeah, I didn't know.
I'll come pick you up if it's, get you there.
I didn't see, you were hesitating awfully a lot there at the end. I was like, what's going on? Why is he, okay. I get it.
Yeah, so that's moving well. Pickleball Highland Park, they started construction on that, and they're working on that. I don't have any updated time.
Where are we on, with the swim club and the transfer of the land?
It's in there, their board has to agree, so it's to their board.
But it seems like everything's working in the right direction.
As far as our, we're in agreement.
You've agreed to everything. I just want to make sure, because I both about that.
We're both in agreement, and it's, I told him once the swim club approves that, then we'll start the survey and transfer.
And parade is on the 4th, sorry.
Yes, it is the 4th of July. Yes. All right, so last thing is just legislation. We've got last year's amended budget for second reading. We have this year's budget for second reading, pay classification for second reading. We do have a resolution that the state requested us to have approved that's allowing the state to give us the $5 million for this park project, or the Tower Park sport complex through the school, which we've already talked about. We're gonna get $2.5 million July 1st, and then the other $2.5 million the following year. That's just a resolution to have council agree to do that. We already have that discussed, the transfer to the school. We've also worked on an agreement with the school just to lay that out, that this is money we're giving them for that purpose. And then the last one, the legislation, is a municipal order for the SRO agreement. The only change for the SRO agreement compared to last year, there are still 2 officers, and the only change was the dates. Everything else stays the same. That's all we have for.
When you, did you talk about the supplement to the code of ordinances? You want to talk about, I didn't understand that at all, so. You want
That's
to
the
talk about
codify, correct? Yeah, so what that does is, when we do all these ordinances, we have to codify them every so many years, and that means it gets put on the website, on legal, American legal.
Okay.
So right now, The only thing that's on American legal, or one that's been codified, and codified means they take the legal jargon and make it into something that.
That's why I'm reading American legal, so.
Right. So right now, that's why we have all our ordinances on the website, because if it's not American legal, it's on the website. And then once it gets put on American legal, then that website stuff really should come off, because.
Off our website? American legal is pretty easy to operate, to be honest with you, once it's in there.
So that's
like
what,
so.
Sorry, I didn't send out an email on that, but yeah, that.
I was kind of wondering, it sounded like an update to the ordinance somehow, and we had to
It's
bring them
just,
up this part.
all it is taking them, all the ordinance you've already approved, and we're having them codify it.
Okay.
So thanks for bringing that up.
I kind of assumed it was something, but I wasn't, thank you very much.
If anyone's questions, that's all
All right, we don't have any reports of committees.
No.
We don't have any other old business. New business, scooter safety.
So I think we're all aware of this. I think it's been brought up a couple of times tonight. You know, we've gotten emails, and there's been some discussion. There was even the one at the Fort Thomas Business Association that they hosted that one time, which was fantastic. And Erica from Midway brought it up, and unfortunately, she had something come up and she couldn't make it. I don't know if anybody read her email. She was going to come speak on behalf. She was just really hoping it would go to committee for further review. I think we all know it's becoming an issue as these things become more available, less expensive. It's a great way for families to give their kids an option to get someplace without them having to take them. But when it comes to, and I know Matt, you have been working on signage and stuff for our business districts. I'm not sure signage always works. You know, I think when I did this survey a long time ago, or a couple years ago, we all did as a council where we changed the speed limits from 25 miles an hour to 20 miles an hour in Woodville area, and then we came back a year later and did the same survey, and it was almost the exact same amount of cars and stuff like that. Nothing changed. You know why? Because signs don't change the areas. I learned the roads dictate the speed, right? So I'm not sure that signs is going to stop at 10 or 12.
I don't think that's the same.
Well, I understand
what the speed limit sign.
Well, I'm talking about how can we divert the speed, and the diverting of the speed. If we put signs up and say, "Hey, slow down, walk," are they really going to pay attention to them? Or how long is it going to take them to pay attention to them? So maybe we need other obstacles. I'm going to give this to you, Melissa, when you're done. If you want to send it out to everybody. I just looked up, ages. Legalities. I also looked up different ordinances that different cities have adopted because obviously it's becoming more of a problem. You can't have two people on their lights, you know what I mean? How the state has updated their ordinances on these kind of things. And I think it just would be a great start to a good discussion for all of us. So I would like to make a motion that we send scooters to all the license for further discussion about possible policy or procedure or ordinance changes to help with this issue, whether anything comes out of it or not is up to them, but I think that definitely at least should be looked at a little bit further if everybody.
Second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And I'd like to bring up one more thing that I brought up with Tim earlier today, just to put it on record. As I was looking through these ordinances, of course, golf carts are related to, and this is not a big change, but golf carts are related to scooters and motorized vehicles and stuff like that. And it appears that the state updated their ordinance in July 15th of 2020. It doesn't add a lot of stipulations, but it does add a couple more regulations on there about signage, I believe, and highlighted stuff on the side. I don't think it's a big change. But then I found another ordinance where we have to update ours every 5 years, so I think it's, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong.
It's KRS, we're responsible for reviewing ordinances, make sure they don't violate KRS essentially. And we can always be more restrictive, we can't be more liberal in how we handle things. I printed the states, the KRS on the golf stuff, and I'll take a look at it and compare it, see where we're at.
Yeah, and it's not a big change, it just happened to see that when I was there, and we just make sure that we're in line with the state every so often. Nobody's in trouble or nothing, your grandfather didn't tell, for all that kind of stuff like that, but I think you are required to do that, so I just wanted to bring that up, and I'll give these both to Melissa, yeah, for you guys. Okay. So we're going to, motion, cool.
Wait, we didn't vote on that.
He roll call voted.
Yeah. Sorry, I was looking up, I forgot who was the chair of law labor license.
Did we vote?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. School resource officer?
I already talked about that.
You did. Okay, we're done. Finance report. Finance committee.
Report of disbursements, May 17th through June 14th, 2024. General fund, $1,254,986.35. Public Works KDOT fund, $30,107. CBD revitalization, $30,248.22. Waste fees, $129,982.40. Total, $1,445,323.97. We, the undersigned members of the Finance Committee, recommend that warrants number 25458 through 25590 be approved and the treasurer be authorized to issue checks for their payment. Mr. Henry, chairperson; Mr. Beazle, member; Mr. Strange, member.
Second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Beazle?
Aye.
Mr. Blau?
Aye.
Mr. Henry?
Aye.
Mr. Strange?
Aye.
Mr. Ellison?
Aye.
Mrs. McIntosh?
Hey, are you doing this, you're not going in order, are you rotating the order every time now? I like that, that's a great change, thank you for that.
I'm just dealing with it.
No, I think it's a great idea because it can dictate how someone votes, I think it's a very,
More proper. Ken always say that. Ken, you were always saying that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Can I, you want me to get in line, or do you wanna do it now?
Let's do that.
Okay. I just noticed, and I apologize because I was out of town until Saturday. And I did review this, so it's all on me. The adopting the supplement of code of ordinances, I'm not sure why we have this in ordinance, it should be a municipal order. There's no reason to have two readings of that, because all that is council saying, take our ordinances we've already approved twice and make them legal.
So you're gonna change
So,
that to an
we're gonna-
ML
Yeah,
and
so
approve.
Tim's going to make that into a municipal order and just read it as a municipal order. Council's okay with that change?
Yep, that makes sense.
I didn't catch that, my apologies.
Okay, start with the ordinance 01.
Do you disagree, Melissa?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
Because American Legal Publishing actually sends us an ordinance, the copy, to adopt because it goes into the code.
Then let's just leave it.
Okay.
Sorry.
We want them to publish it.
I disagree.
way to go, Melissa.
Smack
6
Thank you.
years.
Just,
This is how you operate down there, more power to you, well done, you too as well.
All right, ordinance number 001/2024, an ordinance amending a general fund budget for the city of Fort Thomas, Campbell County, Kentucky for the fiscal year 7/1/2023 through 6/30/2024 by estimating revenues and resources and appropriating funds for the operation of city government.
Entertained motion. Move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Beazle?
Aye.
Mr. Blau?
Aye.
Mr. Henry?
Aye.
Mr. Strange?
Aye.
Mr. Ellison?
Aye.
Mrs. McIntosh?
Okay, ordinance 02.
An ordinance adopting a general fund budget, municipal road aid fund budget, debt service fund budget, capital projects, CBD fund, health insurance fund, and waste disposal fund budget for the city of Fort Thomas, Campbell County, Kentucky for the fiscal year 7/1/2024 through 6/30/2025 by estimating revenues and resources and appropriating funds for the operation of city government.
Motion, please. Move to approve. Is there a second? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Beazle?
Aye.
Mr. Blau?
Aye.
Mr. Henry?
Aye.
Mr. Strange?
Aye.
Mr. Ellison?
Aye.
Mrs. McIntosh?
All right, ordinance 03.
An ordinance amending the personnel and pay classification plan by unilaterally increasing the official pay table by 6% effective on July 1/2024, and amending the compensation ranges for various positions.
Motion. Move to approve. Is there a second? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Beazle?
Aye.
Mr. Blau?
Aye.
Mr. Henry?
Aye.
Mr. Strange?
Aye.
Mr. Ellison?
Aye.
Mrs. McIntosh?
Melissa, I just looked that up and you're absolutely correct. Even though I disagreed, I was disagreeing with American Legal, because I've had issues with them before, but my apologies, and good catch, Melissa, thank you.
04, known as the Melissa ordinance. An ordinance enacting and adopting a supplement to the Code of Ordinances of the City of Fort Thomas, Kentucky.
And that is the first reading, so we don't need a motion on that. Now we're down to resolutions, R02.
Adoption of a resolution of the City of Fort Thomas authorizing the filing of a Kentucky House Bill 1 project grant application for up to $5 million in HB1 funds with the Department for Local Government, DLG, authorizing and directing the mayor of the City of Fort Thomas to execute any documents which are deemed necessary by DLG to carry out this project, and authorizing the mayor to act as the authorized correspondent for this project.
Move to approve.
Second. Roll call vote, that's the resolution, doesn't voice vote, or
Yes.
no, for $5 million to.
Because of the dollar amount,
It's me signing, but
Yeah.
anyway, okay. Roll call vote, let's just do it now.
Mr. Beazle. Mr. Blau.
Aye.
Mr. Penrose. Mr. Strange.
Aye.
Mr. Ellison. Mrs. McIntosh.
All right, the last one, municipal order 19.
a municipal order authorizing the mayor to execute a school resource officer agreement with the Board of Education of Fort Thomas Independent School District.
Move to approve.
Can you explain this real quick to everybody so they might understand what's going on here? I saw this, we gonna pay for 2 officers, is that what it is? I'm just trying to figure that out.
No, this is the exact same as last year, that the school was splitting half the cost.
Okay. I read through it, I didn't see that, but I started to get jumbled at the end there, so is that, we just renew this every year? I did see on there every year. so
Yeah,
we renew this every year.
the school board can't, since I think their school board members are off cycle, they can't get into agreement longer than 1 year. So everything with the school board has to be 1 year.
Are we gonna be required to put one in every school at some point? Or
We aren't required for anything, it's the school that's required.
The school's, I'm sorry, is the school required, or how's that work, and then we help them out?
No, we don't have to help them out.
Are we going-
State law says they have to have one on each campus.
Okay.
And if they don't have one on each campus, then justify why.
Okay.
So obviously they've justified why.
No, I want to help them out.
The city of Fort Thomas doesn't need 5.
Roll call vote, please.
Sorry. Mr. Beazle.
Aye.
Mr. Blau.
Aye.
Mr. Penrose. Mr. Strange. Mr. Ellison. Mrs. McIntosh.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
One second, I just want to go back to this adopting supplement code ordinances. Since we did the first reading tonight, we're all going to be together in 2 days. We only need 24 hours in between. Could we vote on that on Wednesday? Or not?
We could, but I mean.
If it's not necessary,
that
I just
big a
didn't know, because you acted like it would be better just to get it done, and it was
It's not
something
big.
pretty simple.
Yeah.
So I didn't think it was that big a deal.
Well,
But I just said
adjourn.
we're all there, so it's not the same thing. So.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, we're out of here. Thank you all. Thanks all for coming tonight.